Someone from the Pegasus management team to give us a safety protocol briefing. This won't be more than 5 minutes, and then we'll commence this afternoon's activity.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carlos Montenegro. I'm the GM of the Pegasus Hotel and Suites and
Thank you very much, GM. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the third edition of the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, which is designed by the youth for youths and caters to both students and young tech professionals who have never heard of internet governance before, and young professionals already involved in the sector. I do know that we have an interesting conversation for you here today, but for lighting things up on my end, this is a quick question here. How many programmers does it take to change a light bulb? Any answers? How many programmers does it take to change a light bulb? I'll probably have a nice piece of cheesecake for you if you get that answer right. Any takers? I saw 4, 3, 2, 1. Any takers? All right, so the answer is none because it's a hardware problem. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to this edition of the third Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. It takes me a great pleasure now to welcome Mr. Rodney Taylor of the CTU and also Mr. Tariq Mohammed of a CYIGF chair to deliver opening remarks. Let us welcome them.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm just going to come down here, and I hope it doesn't present a challenge for the camera people. Good afternoon again. I gave opening remarks this morning, and so I just wanted to bring you greetings this afternoon and to let you know that the CYIGF, we're pleased to be able to associate the CIGF with the CYIGF. We believe it is the new kid on the block. It has our full support, and when the initiative came up, we indicated that we as CTU did not want to plan a youth IGF and invite the young people. We wanted young people to plan the youth IGF for themselves, determine what topics they wanted to speak on, what speakers they wanted. And so we're very pleased that, that we're able to have this third youth IGF. Can I see all of the hands of the young people here today? That's what I thought. Our most youthful here, Mr. Albert Daniels. And of course, Oliver, we have many online participants, young people as well. This is also part of an initiative that we call the Caribbean Youth ICT Network. And that is something we're trying to nurture and establish with the support of the young people so that they can work intersessionally, not just on the CYIGF, but help us be the youth arm of the CTU in delivering and being the next generation of stakeholders who can take the representation of the region forward. And Tariq may speak more about that, I'm not sure, but you can find more information on our website, ctu.int, Caribbean Youth ICT Network. I encourage you to sign up. And my dream is that that will have full autonomy and it will work very closely along with the CTU to help us advance the regional ICT agenda. So I wish you very engaging discussions. I'm pretty sure, you know, in terms of the format of the meeting, it is not meant to be too formal. Please feel free to raise your hands, intervene, share your points of view. That's the whole point of it, right? You're not here to listen to adults speak or persons who've been around for 20, 40 years in the industry. It is for you to bring a fresh perspective, as you say it, as a young person. So thank you very much for your interest, and we wish you a very engaging afternoon. Thank you.
All right, so in following with SG's footsteps, I will also be walking out a bit and not standing on the podium. So good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Tariq Mohammed. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. This is actually my first time in Guyana. You all have a very beautiful country. I'm the chair of the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, which is an initiative that started not in Guyana, not even in the Caribbean, but was first ideated all the way in Rwanda, Africa in 2022. There, a number of youth from the Caribbean were attending a UN conference, and we were engaged by the CTU to take the initiative and design a forum that follows along with the ongoing Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, designed by youth for youth. What do we want to hear? What are the issues that we are facing, and how do we want to address it? In echoing the SG's sentiments, we have a very packed panel here today, packed sessions, lots of panels, and lots of presentations as well from Martin as well as Leslie. But this is not them talking to you, but really stimulating a conversation. Also, we are looking to expand the CYIGF from being just an internet governance-based initiative to being a youth in tech initiative. And if anyone is interested, and I hope you all are, please contact us. You could reach out to us at CYIGF@ctu.int, and we'll get your contact information and have you there to know when we're launching and what are some of the activities, and hear and engage from you. Also, a very interesting thing to note is that in the past few months, so in the last forum, there were discussions on taking this rough initiative, the CYIGF, and officially registering it with the UN IGF as an NRI. We were able to do that this year, and so we are now, this is our first year of actually being a registered NRI with the UN IGF. So thank you for everyone that was possible to make that happen. I know we have a number of viewers online that are very active in that committee. Through this opportunity of registering as an NRI, we have been able to engage a wider community, not just within the Caribbean, but at a global level, participating in designing the ongoing youth tracks that lead up to the next Internet Governance Forum, and also participating in the ideation and development of that forum, which will be held later this year. I know Carol mentioned a lot of that earlier when she was presenting on the UN IGF as the MAG chair. So thanks so much, Carol. So yeah, without any further ado, I know we have a very packed agenda today, so I just want to thank you all for attending and encourage you to stay active. Each table has a microphone. Please feel free to pick it up. You have to switch it on and contribute at any time. So thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thank you, Tariq. We promised to get that ball rolling, of course, and we're going to start today's conversation. As young people, we can have a say in shaping the future of internet policies, and I do believe it's important as a young person we do so. Our next presenter is here to tell us more about it. Let us welcome Mr. Martin Boderman, the chair of the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, that is the GFCE Working Group on Emergence Technology, and also the ICANN board member. Mr. Boderman.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Hi. Good to see you. What I'm trying here is to connect with you, because it's not only that the youth has a say on the future The youth is the future. They are going to determine how they're going to use the internet. And this may not be as we expected it in the past. So the future is what we make of it. You can't predict the future, but you damn well can be part of making it. So let us look ahead a little bit and really realize in this that the only constant we've seen over time is change. And from that point and that perspective, change comes with good things and with bad things. Let's make the best of it. And we do that by our choices today. So a vision for 2035 is that the internet will be a very different place than it is today. It will be faster, more secure, more accessible, more usable. It's where people can come together, share videos, collaborate, create things, even easier than today. Possibilities will be limitless, and everything is possible. Everything. How do we make sure that everything is more good than bad, that we want to use that? It's only 1974 that the standard for TCP/IP was published. Why do I mention that? It's because TCP/IP is the protocol that makes things interoperable, that makes this one internet that more than 5 billion people are using is really one internet to use, whereas it's a combination of many, many networks, many, many internets. It's an internet of internets. Since 1974, we started to connect those to make sure that we can share information across those. I started working in the end of the 80s, and at that time, there was a need to introduce telework. A first try. It was so difficult because when you worked in those days and you were part of a unit, you were sitting in the same corridor in the same building as your colleagues. And when there was an organizational change, everybody in the corridor changed to the new corridor with the unit. And when we started with the telework pilots in the Netherlands with the Dutch government, it was really many managers who would be wary, like, how can I know they work? Of course, the question, the answer was, well, how do you know today? Because they're in? Because there's a coffee cup on their desk? Because their coat is hanging over their chair? Or is it because of the results? And it's Alvin Toffler who came in this book, The Third Wave, that was this time of futurists that Alvin Toffler, John Naisbitt, that with megatrends, that really came to see the beginning of the change that we've seen witnessed today. We have to break the idea that an executive is a person who drives 33 miles a day to central locations where hundreds or thousands of people work in cubicles. And unless they go there, nothing gets done. That's true. In 1990, telework became possible when deemed possible. And we used bulletin board systems for exchange of information. We used telephones to call, to connect to that information. And it was only in 1993, 1994 that the World Wide Web became possible. And from that, many, many more people started using it. And as Mr. Griffith said this morning, yes, of course, the internet started to be because of the war, because of the fear that the telecom networks would fail in large catastrophic situations, and the internet was built to overcome that. So the packet switching rather than the circuit switching was at the origin there. For those who are not as technical as I am, or even less technical, circuit switching is what you used to do with telephone lines. And you may have seen these pictures of women, mostly women, in offices picking, connecting cables in big boards. And then they made a circuit. And if any part of that circuit was broken, you couldn't connect. Packet switching in principle makes it possible that even if the sea cable, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow as well, between two islands is broken, there's other ways around it and you can still connect and you won't even notice that was the case. Maybe a bit slower. In 1998, ICANN was set up. ICANN was the first time that we came together to organize how we govern this internet. Before that time, it was a man with a big beard, bigger than mine, John Postel, working from University of California in an office, holding a notebook. And at that time, it was really set up like, this is becoming too complex, it's becoming too important, let's organize it. So, the other thing about telework, remember? We've moved a lot, and we fast forward to 2019 where COVID hit the world. And what we saw was that so many people suddenly found out that they can work, they can deliver, they can do so via the internet, working from home. No need for special arrangements, you just needed to have your laptop or your telephone, and you could contribute and participate and continue. What struck even me and many other experts in the field, how little impact the massification of the use of the internet and streaming video on the internet had on the speed. Hardly any. This strong is the internet today. If you look to the last decade, I'd like to point you mostly at how this changed. When I was in 2000 looking at these stats for the first time, more than half of all internet users was from the North American continent. Today, it's 8% from the North American continent. The big blue bar on the bottom, you can't read it, but the slides will be shared. That's Australasia. That's where most people on the internet come from nowadays, from Asia, from Australia. And you can also see that if you look to how this is going to progress, this statistic indicates how many people in the region are currently making use of the internet. And you see that many are around 60, 70, 80%. The world, on average, about 60%. You see in South Asia that it's still under 40. You see in Sub-Saharan Africa, it's about 35%. Guess where the next growth will come from? Guess where the next billion users will come from? Not from North America, Europe. The picture will change even more. And that has a lot of impact on how we communicate with each other, how we use the internet. So I would like you to keep that into mind too. The internet isn't only about the country where you live and what you do with it. It's what the world does with it. Now, if we fast forward even further to the future, how will it look like? How will this future be shaped? Well, again, no predictions here. But for those of you who are really interested in getting a little bit more feel, go online and find the book Four Internets, written by Dame Wendy Hall and Kieran O'Hara. This book describes how different powers shape the internet today and will shape the internet towards tomorrow together. The Silicon Valley Open Internet, so the technical internet, we can make it work. The Brussels Bourgeois Internet, it's called. It's basically the EU value-driven internet where human rights and values are the prime, and in that way limiting entrepreneurship as well. You got the Beijing's authoritarian internet, which is symbolic used in the book as an environment in which it's used to also monitor the people, get the people, keep track of what they do and things like that. And the fourth one is the DC's, District of Columbia, US again, but the commercial internet, and that is everything is for sale on that internet, everything. So if you think of a future where this all is shaped, please also note that in the book, The Four Internets, there's also a fifth, what they call the Moscow spoiler model. Active abuse can be made of this internet. And it's weaponized against us, it's weaponized against elections, it's used for lying. It results in not only the Arab Spring in Tunisia and other countries a decade ago, but also to the riots in the UK a couple of weeks ago. So if you consider this, know that all these internets have their value and all these drivers have their value, and the value, how much you like it or don't like it, differs where you come from. But this together will shape this world tomorrow. And if you don't recognize that, if you're going for our internet only, it won't work. So for those who are really going to get into internet governance and want to play a role in this world on how this is going to work, please remember, we're not alone. Please remember, your values may be good, but they're not the only ones. So for the sake of time, I'll leave you with the Pew visions of the internet. Pew is the oldest, I think, social science research institute. It's based in the US, and it's the oldest because it was the first one who has access to all these lots of data. Nowadays we see how we can find the way forward with data and privacy. But the visions they had is building better spaces, digital platforms that codify new norms for discourse and facilitate open and honest conversations that are less fractious and menacing. So how do we get the content, the discussion, the interaction in a positive way? How do we construct effective communities? And these will be digital, of course, so not necessarily in your neighborhood. How do we empower individuals? How do we make sure that you as a person have choice? It's not decided for you. How do you as a person have some grip on the data about you? Of course, it will come with a lot of changing, and I have no idea how it's going to look like altering reality, but I remember the video games or the internet games I played was Leisure Suit Larry. Who's ever played Leisure Suit Larry? Heard of that? Nobody? That was the first multi-user domain games on the internet in the 90s. It was text-based and it reacted. Nowadays, it's virtual worlds, and if you have one of those masks in front of you, it's like you're really there. How will this play out in the business environment? How will it play out when you're doing your shopping? You already see examples on TV where houses are designed in a way that you can walk through them. So, many big problems will need to be tackled. The world is full with challenges that have nothing to do with the internet itself, but the internet can help address that. And let's see how that can, how we can contribute to that, how you can contribute to that when I'm gone, or just sitting in my rocking chair and look back at what we've been doing over time. Climate change, I bet further advancement of human rights. Slavery was normal in the 17th century, or it wasn't even frowned upon that much. Nowadays, we would say that was so wrong. We're so ashamed of it, we're so sorry. How will we deal in the future with, how we deal with diversity, with discrimination and things like that? And the other thing is, of course, global health issues such as pandemics. Next time, let's be even faster than with COVID. Just a couple of touch bases and then I'm done. Artificial intelligence is one of these game changers we're facing. Artificial intelligence is something we talk a lot about, so how do we get that right? If you limit it beforehand, it won't happen. So there needs to be space for evolvement. In Europe, there's an AI Act which stipulates that the industry in the first place should come to a kind of self-regulation, and then following that, governments need to review what they need to do to backstop that, as to avoid impact that is irreversible to how we live together. For you who are wanting to go deeper into AI, look at the algorithms to be fair, to be reasonable. And if you're really diving in, then you find, and you Google on 9 algorithms, Dutch government, then you'll find 9 algorithms that have been audited and reviewed for their fairness. 6 of them weren't good enough. And what I tell my international audience, I bet the Netherlands isn't the worst, and they also published it. So look at that's one thing, that's the algorithms. The other thing is the data. Which data do you use to train your AI? Is it a limited data set? Is it a skewed data set? Where's the bias? Is it only English when you're coming from a Spanish country? Is it, in what ways is it biased? It's so important that we get that right. And I won't give all the answers because I don't have them. Quantum technologies, a game changer. You may have heard of quantum. What does it really mean? Well, it's basically a whole shift in the way of computing. One thing for sure it will do is that if you secured your data by encryption or by certain security measures that are not quantum proof, they will be readable at some point. And one of the things that's happening at the moment is that apparently in the darknet, loads of encrypted data are now shifting ownership because people think at some point they may be able to decrypt those and read them. How do we go about this? How do we think about it? How do we prepare for that? At ICANN, you can see in the reports that also our technical office is looking into, so what do we need to do to make sure that the root is quantum proof, that our operations are quantum proof. We need to start thinking ahead. This also goes for governments. And governments are full with people who really are there because they feel called for the cause, but they don't necessarily are deeply technical experts or have any idea what's coming to them. So we need to help them too. Internet of Things. You may have heard of it. I think the first thing in my house was my Samsung TV in 2002 that I could steer with voice commands. One of those commands that you could use to instruct your TV was TV on. So it sort of means it's listening all the time. Where do those data go? Nowadays, I don't know about you, but my car is electric. It's full with IoT devices. In the Netherlands, we managed we watched the water systems because 2/3 of the Netherlands is below sea level. So we need to watch the water levels. It's all IoT nowadays. Wherever you go, it becomes part of the fabric. If you connect this back to AI, you see that it's also governed by automatically without intervention of people. So just a thought. Internet of Things, again, we need desperately. There was a project in Kyrgyzstan presented to the European IGF where making use of LoRa wide area networks, so there's low radiation, so there's very cheap site networks that you can set up in environments where infrastructure isn't that good yet or is broken, where you can rapidly share information. And that helps for climate monitoring, that helps for emergency warning and things like that. There's so much possible that the Internet of Things can help with. At the same time, if I put my camera in a way that you can also see whether the neighbor parks their car and who's visiting them, that may be frowned upon. Data does drive the economy. Big stories are really around, so why did Elon Musk buy Twitter? Where's the value of all these data platforms? Is it in the money they make or is it in the data they own? Many economists believe more and more it's in the data they own. So data does drive society and does drive the economy. So if you consider for your studies something about data governance, I think you'll be good for the years to come. Much to do there. It's key. Why is privacy so important? is because today nothing could be private anymore if we don't actively watch it. You could almost make a film of my life without me telling how that goes, because there's cameras, there's credit card use, there is borders crossed. There's so much that can measure everything about me, including the geolocation of this phone that I indeed often have with me. So if we don't take active measures, privacy doesn't exist anymore. Web 3.0, I saw it mentioned as well. What is Web 3.0? Anybody knows? I see no hands. Well, truth is, there is not one definition yet. But it does feel like the continuum from Web 1.0, which was the browser that connected you to pages with fixed information, to Web 2.0, where the information on these pages was dynamic, and depending on who was calling and going there, video, etc. Web 3.0 is an intuitive environment that is entirely devoted to you and where you can very easily get what you want. It will be more and more, experts say, decentralized, peer-to-peer, blockchain-backed, rather than the central registry. AI will be enabled to save a lot of time in your seeking. You may get the answer already before you ask the question. You may think that's stupid. If I'm done with my father, I walk out of the door of his house. My phone tells me how much time it takes to go to drive home. I didn't ask that phone. User greater control over his or her data is something that's said. That means that's true for the good guys and for your privacy. It's also true for the bad guys. It creates another environment. Trustless and permissionless. This is the way we built the internet. And there's a lot of value in that. At the same time, how do you ensure that permissionless doesn't lead to abuse? If it's connected everywhere all the time, some people, not from the internet, of social sciences, will warn you that look around in a restaurant. People having a romantic dinner together, both looking at their phone, being in contact with so many other people, saying how fantastic it is to have this romantic dinner, while they're not engaging with the person at the table. And last but not least, in a decentralized environment, and you already see that because the internet is across borders, the legal and regulatory risk, who is going to take care, who is going to jump in when there's abuse, who can do that, when is it abused legally in that area. So, leaving you with a contemplation, again you can read it on the presentation when it's shared. Over the next 15 years, the internet will expand in more depth and breadth. And the range of active stakeholders will widen. It will be more than the ones that are now in the room. While the potential challenges are enormous, so are the opportunities. And both business leaders and policymakers can harness that internet. We can take action to serve broader economic and social objectives in the public interest. Regardless of how the future unfolds, exploring and rehearsing divergent and plausible figures for the internet can help to shape it for the better. Don't try to make it, to boil it down to be yours. Make it ours and help make that happen. So the question really is to all of you, but even more to those who have many more decades to go than I have. What will you do? And we create the world of tomorrow with the choice and the actions we do today. So I'll leave it to that for the sake of time. You will find some information on ICANN and some information on the GFC after that. But I really hope that you do engage and do realize that doing nothing isn't really an option. It will happen to you then. So I'll be around and happy to answer any questions at any point in time, engage with you. And I also want to point you at the opportunities that there are for learning more online, engaging online with institutions like ICANN, Internet Society, LACNIC and others. IGF, you can participate. You can't travel to Riyadh? Not a problem, you can still be there. I see Carol, the chair of the MEC, agreeing, 2 thumbs up. So if you think, well, that's too far from my bed, I'll never be able to do it, get curious, try it. Maybe you'll like it. So thank you for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank once again to Mr. Botherdom for delivering those remarks. A reminder that today we'll be looking at empowering youth and addressing challenges in global internet governance, navigating the future of digital policy. That presentation was just done. We'll move into empowering Caribbean youth, driving the Global Compact and SIDS agendas into action. I'd like to now invite Ms. Nancy Quiros of the Internet Society to deliver her remarks. Let's welcome Ms. Nancy.
Hi, good morning, everyone. For me, it's a pleasure to be here. And to be honest, I really like to see many faces here. If you are here, it's because you care. And if you care, that is the first step. So a big applause to all of you for being here and for caring for the internet.
All right, I'm going to open the questions. So we're going to highlight now the proactive role of youth in the Caribbean in advancing the principles of Global Digital Compact, that is the GDC. So I'm going to invite my apologies there. I do believe that we have Celeste that's supposed to be joining us.
Good afternoon. Yes, I'm online.
Hi, Celeste, are you here? Celeste
Yes.
is the moderator for this panel, and we have a few other online panelists.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Tariq, so I'll be joining in from Gabby's screen.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, as mentioned, my name is Celeste Pereira, and I'm an ITU envoy from Trinidad and Tobago, and I'll be moderating our first panel discussion this afternoon, which is on empowering Caribbean youth, driving the Global Digital Compact and CIGF agendas into action. So, it's my honor to be here this afternoon. Now, this panel discussion highlights the proactive role of youth in the Caribbean in advancing the principles of the Global Digital Compact, which I would refer to as the GDC, and the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for CIGF, focusing on their contributions to achieving these international goals. So for this discussion this afternoon, I am joined by 3 lovely panelists, one of which you have already met, Ms. Nancy Quiros, who is a senior manager at the Internet Society. And I'm also joined online here with Mr. Shogun Rosary, who is the director of Optronics Limited, and Mr. Filippo Pierozzi, who is an associate program officer, Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Technology. So good afternoon and welcome to all of our panelists. It's very nice to have you all here with us. So let's head straight into our questions. So my first question to you guys is, now popular UN agendas are the GDC and the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for CIGF, or the APAS, which is a renewed declaration for resilient prosperity. So these focus on driving development, regional and globally, with focuses on the technology. Now, in your opinion, what is the relevance of these agendas to the Caribbean region, and what are some of the key priorities that we as a region should focus on? So any of you can feel free to answer first.
I think I think I could go ahead. So I think these policies, they really highlight the region's pressing need to adapt to this changing digital age. I think we're in a very unique position because as it stands right now, the Caribbean is facing many problems which are both external and somewhat internal and are related to, our lack in development in technology. And as sometimes I like to think in a place where you have many problems, you also have many possible solutions. And I think the Caribbean is a place which is rich for creating those technology solutions, not only because of the level of our human capital, but like I said, that plethora of existing problems that we have now. I think particularly in the areas of digital infrastructure and digital inclusion, and especially upskilling our people. I think those are some of the areas moving forward which we really have to place heavy emphasis on as we're able to empower our people in the region. That's how we can really build that ecosystem of people who can take those tools that we've empowered them with and solve some of these problems that we're facing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Maybe I can go next, if you can hear me all right.
Yes, we can.
I'm not from the region and I'm not even that young, so I don't really feel that I'm the most qualified person, but maybe I can elaborate a bit on the Global Digital Compact, especially based on our experience. Again, maybe it's a lot of UN jargon on who I am and who we are. I'm working with the UN Secretariat in New York, and we are supporting the co-facilitators of the GDC. And over the last 2 years, we engage with some 7,000-8,000 stakeholders from all regions. When it comes to the Caribbean region, and what Shergon was mentioning about digital infrastructure and upskilling, I think that the opportunities from the GDC for young people in the region, they are two-pronged. One is related to the thematic, to the issues in particular, and there is digital skills, there is all the language related to human rights. There is, of course, a strong component on connectivity with some very specific language that I think will be very relevant for the region on local initiatives, local networks, and also other forms of connectivity, like can be satellite connectivity. But the other one that I think is also very important is around methodology. That is to say, strengthening a multi-stakeholder model where young people can contribute and when all countries can have their opinion represented. And there I'm thinking especially of what Martin was saying in his keynote around artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence is everywhere. So it can be an opportunity to young people to come in, chime in, and for everyone to play a role in the governance of artificial intelligence for the year to come. And the way we perceive it from the Secretariat, we know that our North Star is the Agenda 2030, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals, but digital cooperation and technology will not stop on 2030. That is 5-6 years away. So we really think that this can be the first step for the technological agenda looking beyond 2030.
Okay, thank you for that, Filippo. And in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to our next set of questions, which focuses on the role of youth. But before I do that, I have to apologize to Ms. Jael Goddard, who's also a panelist here this afternoon. She is a CYIGF committee member. So welcome, Jael. We're very happy to have you here with us as well. So as we're focusing now on the role of youth, I would direct these questions to both Jael and Shergon. So youth have been described as digital natives who have grown up with and around the developing ICT space. Now, given the role that ICTs play in the lives of youth every day, where many are online, connected, and they leverage ICTs to support their everyday tasks at work, home, and otherwise, what actions do you think can be taken by youth to drive the SIDS agendas within their communities and the Caribbean region? So, Jael, you can go first, and then Shigun.
Thank you so much, Celeste. So I think as digital natives, we have a unique advantage in advancing these agendas. Our deep understanding of ICTs can drive positive change, but to do so effectively, first we need to be well informed and familiar with our regional alignments. A lot of the principles, it aligns with stuff that we're already doing. So we already see the Caribbean driving forward and striving and committing to these principles already. Also, what youth can do is actively seek information, participate in discussions, and provide feedback. Leverage your networks and digital platforms so we can boost engagement, advocate for youth inclusion, and promote civic engagement. Resources can also be shared, like opportunities for skill development, mentorship, and knowledge on digital development. All these actions can empower others to contribute a sustainable future.
Okay, thank you for that, Jael. Did we lose Shigun? I think we did. Okay, so based on that answer you just gave us, Jael, what are some challenges that you may expect to arise from youth driving the SIDS agendas, and what are some possible mitigation strategies?
Okay, I think some challenges could include limited resources, access, and interests. Organizing events like social media campaigns, youth forums, it's difficult to do without funding. There's also resistance that can be faced with institutional support and advocating for youth perspective, not just at a youth level, but also bringing these perspectives and voices at a higher level. Many Caribbean youths are also disengaged due to our current socioeconomic challenges, so their focus aren't really on internet governance and digital transformation. They're more interested on the prices of homes or the cost of bread, so that will be of greater interest. However, these obstacles can be overcome. It's possible by us persevering and continuing the advocacy, doing the work, collaborating. All of these things would attract funding and greater youth engagement. Through these things, doors can be opened and we successfully create a more sustainable future.
Okay, thank you, Jael. Shigun, I see you're back with us.
Yeah, so my internet did drop for us for a moment there, so I'm not sure what Jael may have touched on. But I guess this is one of the examples of why we need to see, stronger digital infrastructure in the region. But one of the key priority areas that I think, you specifically can focus on, because we are digital natives and we are used to, solving problems, communicating, and innovating with by utilizing ICTs. I think one of the main things that youth really need to do right now is innovate. And I think to innovate, the youth also need to focus on, grabbing at the current opportunities in the region that exist and that create those environments for innovation. So things like participating in innovation hubs, participating in incubators, participating in accelerators. I think we as youth, we really need to put ourselves out there and in those sorts of environments that can create that reaction. Because as youth, we bring this energy, we bring our ideas, and we bring our need for change as well. So when we put ourselves in those environments where, there is already existing systems, there is already existing capital, I think that's where we can really take our ideas and really grow them, really expand them, make them not only ideas that serve a local purpose, but serve a regional and global purpose as well. I think specifically in the Caribbean, we need to move away from thinking not just what can I do for my local community, but also what can I do for my regional community, and how can I be a global citizen as well? How can I impact persons all the way over in Asia? How can I impact persons in Canada? How can I, thinking globally, not just about the Caribbean. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shugon. So our next question, let's talk a little bit about looking forward to a sustainable, connected world. And I'd like to hear from Nancy first, who is there in person with you guys. So the question is, looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of Caribbean youth in the digital age? And how do you see their role evolving in shaping not just regional, but global digital policies? So Nancy.
Thank you. So I think that a door was open and now we have support, which is very important. But we can only take opportunities if we have an action. What would happen if in this moment I ask you all to put together all your knowledge, all your experience, and work together? I believe that nothing would be impossible. I've been working for ISOC for 10 years, and believe me, for our community, there's no impossible. And I really believe in the power of us. When we all work together, when we collaborate together, there's nothing impossible. You heard about the case that the AT chapter just presented. They built more than 10 community networks in 2 years. AT chapter is one of the youngest chapters in the Caribbean, and they did. And they did because they believe. If you believe, and if you can take at least 1 hour of your time and donate it to this cause, we will make this change. But as I said, change will only happen if you have an action. And sometimes we believe that that action should be something big, something huge, and sometimes we believe that we cannot make that change because sometimes we think that we need to be experts to be here. But you have to believe that if we have an internet, that internet is created and built by each of us. It doesn't matter what is our background, it doesn't matter how much we know, it only matters our will and how we will work together. So my dream is that we all take action today. And there are very, very simple steps that you can do. The first one, for example, could be join Internet Society, join a chapter, and donate 1 hour of your time. It could be 1 hour per month or 1 hour per year, but do something. There is a lot we can do, and we are already making a change. It's just a matter to begin this change.
Thank you for that very inspiring and empowering answer, Nancy. Filippo, what about you? How do you see the role of youth evolving and shaping not just regional, but our global digital policies?
I would like to echo what has just been said in saying, engage with us. We are here in New York in this great office just to listen to you. And so I think the future of youth at the regional and global level when it comes to internet governance is what we make of it. So really my goal is to engage. The Summit of the Future in September will be really a prime opportunity. There will be action days on the 20th of September. There will be a full day dedicated to youth action. That would be fantastic if some of you or some representing your organization can make it to New York. And again, engaging at the local level. You don't need to be an expert. I think the best opportunity for future of youth in technology is to represent local issues at the global level. So engaging with the IGF chapters at the local level, then to represent these ideas at the annual meeting, and like scaling up the local engagement to the global level is essential. And at the UN, we're trying the most that we can to give space to these voices in the big convenings. So do engage with us and bring your local experience. Don't think that only because it's local is not relevant for other people at the other end of the world, because it is. It might be, and oftentimes it is.
Thank you, Filippo. And my final question for you guys, our panelists today, is what message or call to action would you like to give to Caribbean youth who are eager to contribute to the GDC and the SIDS agenda? Shogun, would you like to go first?
If you like, I can go first.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Nancy, before you do so, let me just repeat the question for Shogun. It's what message or call to action would you like to give to Caribbean youth who are eager to contribute to the GDC and the SIDS agenda?
Okay, so I have some opportunities from Internet Society. We have programs, for example, the Youth Ambassadors Program. We have an early career fellowship. We have training that is completely for free for all of our members. We have a special interest group on youth. And we also have the foundation. I think that one of the challenges that we face sometimes is that we do not have the resources. But the problem is not that we don't have the resources, it's that we don't know which resources we have. So at Internet Society, we have the foundation, which is an organization who is funding some of your projects. If you are part of a chapter, you can apply for some of the grants that we have, and also if you have an organization and you are working for an Internet for all, you can also apply for funding. It is important to know about these resources because that is what will give us the tools to achieve the goal that we have of an Internet for everyone. And one of the actions that I would like you all to have today is to visit our webpage, isoc.org, and join as a volunteer or a member in our community. That is the first step that you can take. And after that, we will make sure that you will have opportunities to contribute and to make a change.
Thank you, Nancy. Shogun?
Yeah, I think that was a really good point. And I think to build upon that, not only, grabbing at those opportunities, but then once you do have those opportunities, find persons that you can partner with. And those opportunities really open you up to like-minded individuals. And at that point is then partner with those individuals to expand your impact. I think specifically in the Caribbean, before we have been, cagey with our ideas and a bit cagey with how we operate. But really, if we want to see a global impact, partnerships are very important. So what I recommend to youth is if you see someone else who's doing something maybe not exactly like you're doing it, but adjacent in your field, definitely reach out, partner with individuals, partner with organizations, and see where you could create those connections.
Thank you, Shogun. Filippo?
Nothing to add on my side, really.
Okay, got you. And Jael, what about you? Anything to add to what was already said?
I definitely just want to echo what was previously said. It's definitely important to we just have to do the work and collaborate, like Shrivan was also saying. Together, we could definitely do it. It's not something that's too big for us. It's not something that's out of our age category. And it's been said today already, like the CTU is encouraging us. They're also providing this platform, not made for us, but made by us. So I think we just need to continue on the path that we've already started and just do the work.
All right, thank you for that, Jael, and thank you to the four of you for this lovely discussion. Now I'd just like to open up the floor to the audience if there are any questions for our panelists.
Thank you very much for the engaging conversations. Stepping back to what Martin had said with regards to working from home, COVID gave us an opportunity to work from home, but because of norms and traditions, you find that people have been corralled back at work. What are the youth going to do to help change that norm and that tradition and to create a new tradition? That's one thing. And then I also loved what Nancy said about you don't have to be an expert. You become an expert because you're living it. So you are the expert in your life. So you need to bring it to it. So I'm going to give a shameless plug for the IGF Youth Track. So please, if you can't join us in Riyadh, join us online. This year we formed the IGF working group, and it has grown, and they're doing a great work. So there's an opportunity for you to participate there. Again, go to the intgovforum.org, intgovforum.org, and please join. So the question is for the youth. Thank you.
Well, I think to that point, it's really grabbing at those opportunities, no matter how they present themselves. I think back in 2020, during the height of COVID, I would have joined the ITU's Generation Connect group, and for example, that opportunity, while it was virtual for probably a year, but then and we would have regular meetings, monthly. I mean, of course, those meetings aren't the most. Sometimes you feel like those meetings aren't the most engaging, but you're still, getting work done. You're still moving the needle, and engaging with persons in whatever forum it may be is really important, because I mean, after that, it opened just that opportunity opened me up to so many other opportunities afterwards. So I think for me, my message to the youth is like, it doesn't matter what mode that these opportunities come across, just putting yourself in the room, putting yourself out there, and engaging persons can really open you up to many opportunities afterwards. So don't discount it because of your preference, just jump at it.
Okay, thank you, Shogun. Would any other panelists like to add to that answer?
Maybe I can add something. I think that change will always find the status quo. That will happen sooner or later. What we need to do is to enable the environment. In the moment that we enable opportunities, people will take them. And in that moment, things will change and go back to the normality. I really, really believe that each time we enable an opportunity, it grows. And it grows like mushrooms. So as more opportunities we can enable, the more engagement we will have.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Oh, sorry, Filippo.
Yeah, maybe I can also go. I find it very interesting the mention of like COVID and working from home. I think it resonates especially with my generation, that is our generation. People getting started professionally and then had to go back and work from home. And I think looking back at 4 or 5 years ago, what we'll need to retain moving forward is what technology can complement, for what technology can be a tool, and what we need to maintain. That is to say, I think there is no substitute for human contact, human connections, but at the same time, we need to go back and look of how technology offered a lifeline during the period. And I think we are back to normal 100%, and we are missing that kind of foresight and vision that we had in those very sad months for most of us. Sorry to end on a very down and sad note.
It's all good. Thank you, Filippo. Okay, so in the interest of time, we do have to wrap up our panel discussion this afternoon. So as I wrap up, I would just like to thank once again our four lovely panelists for this what I think is was a very fruitful discussion this afternoon. I think the key takeaway for us as young people is that we really just have to be brave, be bold, and just do it. Take the necessary steps. I loved Nancy's line of saying we don't have to be an expert. So thank you all so much for this lovely discussion and the great advice empowering us as young people in this sector. So thank you all again, and we will close off this discussion now.
Celeste, if I may, we have one more question from the forum, and then we'll wrap things up from your end.
Okay, sure. Sorry, I can't see you guys.
Okay, thank you for allowing me, Maarten Botterman. I've been enjoying very much engaging with people who did participate to the ISO courses online, and I very much recognize that in the end, it is about human contact as well, and there's a difference between digital contact and in-person contact. Now, what I tried to get the students to is to organize speaking sessions in their neighborhood with their own peers, with their class, with their workmates, because you learn so much from that. When I started about telework, my first job was one where I worked with the teleworkers themselves. It were 20 people and 200 people. I visited all their homes. I've interviewed them time and time again, and that is still with me today. If you want to calibrate your own understanding of where you stand and what you want from society, this could help. Would that be something you would consider? What would you need to make that happen? That's Web 4.0. We're not there yet.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the last part of that question.
If anyone would like to take that question? Or probably they could directly answer that question to you directly, Mr. Waterman. I'd like to thank the young persons there for carrying on this second discussion, a second panel discussion at that moment. We're moving on to the third panel discussion, which will be based on securing our digital future, tackling cyber threats, and protecting privacy in the Caribbean. Joining us will be the moderators, Ms. Ranasha Caesar and also Mr. Tyler Sudat of CYIGF.
So hello everyone, welcome to our panel discussion today on securing our digital future, tackling cyber threats and protecting privacy in the Caribbean. Today we'll be having a discussion on protecting youth personal data and privacy online, impact of artificial intelligence on cybersecurity, policies in place for data privacy and protection, and encouraging youth to pursue careers in cybersecurity. As we navigate an increasingly connected world, a variety of cyber threats have emerged, and it's essential to equip youth with knowledge and skills they need to stay safe online. Youth today are digital natives, growing up with technology at their fingertips. Knowing and understanding the cyber threats they may face when navigating the digital world is essential. Today, we're thrilled to have such an experienced and knowledgeable panel with us to provide information on this topic. Today, we have with us Mr. Michael Thomas of the Guyana Computer Incident Response Team at the National Data Management Authority, Mrs. Candy Saunders Alfred, cyber analyst at the Caribbean Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, that's CARICOM Impact. Ms. Celia Barclay, Information Commissioner in the Office of the Information Commissioner of Jamaica, and Mr. Shernan Usepa, a consultant at the CTU. It's such a pleasure to have you all join us with us today. I would pass it on to Tyler, who would firstly introduce the first question to the panel.
Good day, everyone. So the first question. So I have a precursor. So in today's connected world, 98% of cyber attacks rely on social engineering, tricking individuals into revealing sensitive information or downloading malware. Recognizing and protecting oneself from such attacks can be particularly challenging in the Caribbean, where variations in communication styles and social norms can influence how these threats are perceived and addressed. So my question is, how can individuals, especially youth, recognize and protect themselves from social engineering attacks such as phishing, especially in a culturally diverse region like the Caribbean? So anyone can answer the question from the panel. So.
Hi, good day, everyone. Candy Sonazafret from CIGF Impacts. Thank you for the question, Tyler. From a regional perspective, one of the things we, which is one of the most important things, is education and awareness for allowing persons to be able to understand what is a phishing attack, how can you identify these type of attacks, and being able to mitigate them. Also looking at anti-phishing tools and software to assist in this. And there is a need for the youths to be able to understand the importance of knowing how your digital footprint is navigated or used while doing searches or on the internet, because your digital footprint is one of the key things that allow these attackers to receive information to be able to instigate these phishing attacks.
Okay, thanks for that answer. Actually, I do agree. The youth should be aware of these types of attacks because, for instance, well, most of the youths, especially myself, have attended UE, and in their emails, sometimes we receive emails telling us that our Outlook email is about to expire, and please click on this particular link. And some people will click on the link, and of course, it will lead to a lot of attacks. So again, the whole notion of educating and making the youths aware of these types of things is important. So I can pass it over to Renasha now.
Okay, so I see joining us today as well, and I'm sorry that I missed him. There's Mr. Kevin Swift, Head of Public Safety Affairs at LACNIC. Nice having you with us today. So we just move on to the second question for discussion. In the digital age, the protection of personal data and privacy has become critical for people of all ages. For youth especially, who are increasingly active online, ensuring that their privacy and data is protected is essential. In the Caribbean, we're seeing that a lot of the digital infrastructure currently is rapidly evolving, and internet usage is on the rise among youths and other age groups as well. And with this comes challenges as well as opportunities in safeguarding our personal information. Our governments and organizations in the region, they play a crucial role in setting standards and implementing measures to protect data privacy and technology. So one of the questions that I would like to pose, I would invite Mr. Michael Thomas to answer this question is, how can Caribbean governments and organizations improve data protection and privacy to better protect our younger population?
So good afternoon, everyone. So the government and organizations in a whole can actually start to enforce some of those policies that are put in place actually to protect the young people's data. Because one of the things that you'd find is that sometimes organizations, they mishandle that data and the young people's information end up out in the market being sold off for just a penny or two. And that is something we should stop, or should put a stop to, because young people in today's society are the future. So what if, as a young person, my information is already sold, I'm going to sign up for something, and next thing you know, it says, oh, account already exists. Then that puts me at a disadvantage to getting certain services. So enforcing those policies and make sure that penalties are applied when persons go against those policies is one thing that they should do. Awareness is also something else that they should put to young people, because they need to know what are the benefits for them with the privacy and data protection in place for them in society today. So awareness and enforcing and putting penalties to those policies should be a thing that should be done for the Caribbean government and organizations as well.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Thomas. I'll just hand it over to Tyler to pose the next question in our discussion. So Tyler, I think your mic is muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, so this question is about AI and cybersecurity. So technology is ever evolving, and AI has emerged as a transformative force in many areas, including cybersecurity, both offensively and defensively. So in the Caribbean, where digitization is expanding rapidly and cyber threats are evolving, understanding the role of AI in cybersecurity is particularly important. The use of AI can offer significant advantages, but also bring new challenges and considerations for regional security practices. So my question is, how is AI being used in both offensive and defensive cybersecurity strategies, and what implications does this have for the Caribbean? So anyone can answer this question.
Yes, can I go? Yes. I think before I answer your question on AI, just coming here to yesterday, we drove along the Demerara River. I think that is what it's called, right? And I did some research on that river. It's somewhere between 5 to 6 meters deep. So I don't think that anyone will just jump into the river without having like a swimming diploma or something like that. Because then, I mean, you're just crazy. You're not going to do it. So if you look at the bigger ocean that we have out there, the cyberspace, it's much deeper if compared with the Demerara River. It can go all the way to 3.7 kilometers deep. So why would you just jump into that whole big ocean without being prepared? It's very important for us to educate ourselves, to get trained regarding cybersecurity, because else, I mean, you're just asking trouble for yourself. So going back to the AI and cybersecurity, one of the things that we can learn from what I would call the cyber criminals, they are very well prepared, organized, and they do have a lot of funds. So we can learn a lot from them. And they're using technology. Nowadays, everybody's talking about AI, artificial intelligence. So what we have seen with these AI and cybersecurity, basically they're using what we call AI-powered malware. So back then they didn't have that technology, but nowadays with AI, they're making things much more easier for them. Phishing attacks, basically we are seeing almost you cannot make a distinction between the reality and what is not the reality. And I mean, we can't go on. So we need to find a way how to defend ourselves, and we too can use those technology. For example, we can focus on threat detection and response to help us to detect, let's say, possible threats, and then to make sure that we are not being hacked. We can also use what we call intrusion detection system, the same, and very important. It's important for us in the Caribbean to have, let's say, legislation in place as well. If you look at the wider Caribbean, just a few countries do have cyber national cybersecurity strategies. So how do you think you can solve problems if you don't have on the local level a kind of a strategy to deal with all the challenges that we are facing? So I think we should start focusing on those, and then I think in one way or the other we can mitigate the challenges.
Thanks for that answer. I do agree with you. I believe that, to tackle these challenges, it's good to start from the enabling environment itself. So that's a good answer. So on to you, Renasha.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. In today's digital landscape, data protection and privacy are crucial issues, particularly as personal and organizational information becomes more vulnerable to various threats. In the Caribbean, as Tyler would have mentioned, and I would have mentioned before, digital transformation is something that is advancing. And it is crucial for us to understand and implement provisions for robust data protection and privacy. So I'd like to pose this question to Ms. Candy Saunders Alfred or Mr. Kevin Stewart. If you all are aware of any, what are the current data protection and privacy policies that you know of in place at the Caribbean? And how do you think they impact our youths as well as our organizations here in the Caribbean?
All right, I guess I'll take the floor there. Thank you very much for this invitation to speak here. In terms of the Caribbean's data protection policies, what I would say is that we still are at a place where there's, excuse me just 1 minute. There's a hodgepodge of active legislation and regulations in place, where for the most part, most of the Caribbean data protection laws would have had endorsed what would have been older OECD principles, but more so to the fact there's a new body of work in this field called the GDPR coming out of the European Union, which is a general data protection regulation. There are more principles on how you treat with data that are really relevant for Caribbean spaces. I think it's high time that we have more consultations and discussions to sort of adopt them. Some of those principles are very useful for this discussion will be the question of data minimization. So for instance, when someone is collecting data, they need to be very specific as to the exact amount of data that they're collecting and not have sort of excessive collections of data that are not going to be used. From the previous principles, and this is consistent across the Caribbean, identifiable data collectors, informing the person who they're collecting from, how they're going to store the data, how they're going to dispose of it. And another principle I think that is very useful coming off of GDPR, the Caribbean should take on board would be the whole question of notifications for data breaches. The fact of the matter is that a lot of our data out there is vulnerable. I think for the most part, we have to understand that data is an asset. Assets have value, and compared to any other asset, data is an asset that doesn't lose its value the more you use it. So when we think about the vulnerability that we have for the activities that are done out there, at a minimum, we could look at seeing when breaches occur that we actually inform the persons who are affected by this breach within a very reasonable amount of time, providing that there's been no other measure taken to protect that data, such as encryption, but at the same time ensure that these breaches are reported to a state entity, whether it's what you call the data commissioner's office or the like, so that we start to have a sort of functional ecosystem around understanding the exact figures and statistics about the data threats that are happening, and also moving from that statistic into something that's much more on the addressing the recuperation, the follow-up and justice side of things, knowing exactly what's the volume of the issues we're facing here in the region. So,
just to add to what Kevin did say, that yes, there are acts within various countries as it relates to data, and even as it relates to protection of of persons' information. But what we realize, there is a need for harmonized laws across the region so that we could actually, when something happens, let's say in Barbados, but the crime is actually border crossing, that let's say Trinidad could be able to assist and to provide information as it relates to that specific crime. So we realize that the region is a bit segmented as it relates to some of the laws, and there's a need for a standard for us to be able to protect our youths and their privacy as it relates to data.
And thank you for those answers. I actually was thinking about that as well. I mean, different countries have their individual data protection laws acts, but it's good for everyone to come together and have consultations on harmonizing these data protection laws to ensure that we're all on the same page, and to also have proper reporting mechanisms and a proper central point to report such any cyber breaches or any sort of incident, so that we could all help each other. I think that's a really nice thing. It's definitely just the regional harmonization of it all. I think it's very important. So thank you for bringing up those very important points. I'm just going to pass it on.
Could I add something else? Rachel Joseph in the chat made a comment about the Cyber Fusion Unit, to which CARICOM impacts. We do have a Cyber Fusion Unit, which has been implemented January of this year. And the unit was formed as it relates to assist our regional countries as it relates to any cyber crime or cyber security incidents. So we coordinate with the CSIRTs within the region as it relates to any incident, so that other countries or Caribbean countries can be aware of any type of malicious attacks as it relates to national and critical and national infrastructure, also as it relates to any virus malware that may be of importance to let our regional counterparts be aware of it. And we also assist in providing awareness and training programs within cybercrime, cybersecurity field. Thank you.
Can I give just a small comment? Coming back on the social engineering aspect, especially with social media. I mean, nowadays we have changed the concept of friends, because if you look at friendship, it would take, let's say, some time to build a friendship. But nowadays with social media, everybody's your friend. And that's a big problem, because especially given that we have the youth here, they are clicking on everything, because we are talking about friends. The internet was built in an environment of trust. So back then, all these researchers and academics, engineers, they did know each other. But nowadays, that's not the case. Everybody's using the internet, but we are not friends. I mean, you cannot just friends. To have a friend, you need to build friendship, and that would take some times. So my advice would be, especially to the youth, to get yourself out of trouble. Don't click on everything, because you don't know what you're doing, basically.
I just want to add one quick one to that, and I love how Shannon put it. Not everyone is your friend, and the collection of data online is ever more invasive than before. So you are on a social media network, but you fail to realize that that social media network has links with another business, which should be online advertising, with another business that should be of some commercial endeavor. So when you're so anxious for that new application or that new game on social media, you click yes, 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 you're probably not aware of how much control you're giving away of your personal data. And as I said earlier, data is an asset, data has value. So that is what fuels this sort of business, this ecosystem, whereby you're getting all those sponsors, sponsor that. I'm sure many of you had the experience of talking about something in your phone, and by the time you go to a social media platform, you see a sponsored ad for it. That's because of a previous app, something you would have agreed to. You probably have your microphone on, you probably have an always listen on. So you have to be very conservative with what you agree to online. Not everything that is shiny and bright on these platforms is worth it. So just to think a bit more, if it's too good to be true, you get this app and it changes you and you look like a supermodel, it's probably too good to be true. So just be very wary about how you behave, your conduct is when it comes to applications and content online.
Thank you all for that advice. It is very true. We have to be very, aware of what we're clicking and what we're doing online, because as you say, everyone is not your friend. Not everybody has good intentions. So it's good to be cautious. I'll just pass it on to Tyler to ask the final question for this panel discussion.
Okay, so the last question is about career pathways. So how can Caribbean educational institutions encourage students to pursue, as well as better prepare them for careers in cybersecurity? Anyone?
So first, I would like to hit that topic, mentioning that the fact there's a global dearth of about 3.4 million professionals needed for cybersecurity, and this dearth is exacerbated in the Caribbean region. So previously, we just look at the traditional education supply and think, well, the traditional institutions should have something there. There's a lot of work in cybersecurity to be done that doesn't require you to be an engineer or someone that is very technical. You can come in from various backgrounds and understand how cybersecurity works through various upskilling programs that you can access online, and you can become an effective cybersecurity professional focusing on a specific area. So in the absence of what may be offered by our traditional brick and mortar tertiary educations, I would say that go out with whatever your existing background is, look up at some of these cybersecurity professional courses, pursue them, and you can find a path there. And I would just note one thing that I think is highly needed in the Caribbean: the whole merger of cybersecurity or cybercrime with law. It's something that there needs to be a lot more here to help build up this sort of robust policy and enabling environment that we want.
Just to add to that also, I would encourage the youths to be specific. Find something within the cybersecurity field that you feel you are comfortable with and become good at that, because the field is a very broad field. And there are a lot of different capabilities to which you could have, but try to be specific, because this technology in this field is ever changing daily. So you should identify something, be a professional at it, and then if you want to look at others, fine. But I would ask you to make that foundation by being very specific in what you would like to pursue in the field of cybersecurity or cybercrime.
So for the question itself, I think that we should actually start with bringing awareness to students in schools, because they don't actually know in most cases what phishing engineering is, social attacks are. And if you just go to them and be like, hey, you want to do cybersecurity, they may not know what it is. And from personally witnessing doing cybersecurity awareness, when you go to them and you tell them about these different fields that they can join, they're pretty excited. They want to know more about it. They want to actually get the opportunity for you to direct them to the path to get to that career field. So the thing is, we should introduce cybersecurity awareness and cybersecurity in secondary schools first to give students an understanding of what the field itself is. From there, universities and institutions should enhance already existing courses like computer science, information technology by adding more cybersecurity related courses or content. And if that's not enough, create courses specifically for fields that students may want to actually join. They may want to be a forensic analysis, they may want to do malware analysis, or even an incident responder. So not just telling them about the quiz, but also guiding them and giving them the practical experience that they need should help them to get to where they are and help to populate the field of cybersecurity more than it is today.
And I believe it's also very important, if you look at, let's say, traditional educational institutions, it may take sometimes too long for people to get a certification. And nowadays, with everything going quite fast, people don't have that time. So Of course, it's very important to have your bachelor, master, PhD, these kind of things. But it's very important also to look at very industry-specific certification that might help you in what you would like to achieve. And I mean, the other group that would like to pursue that whole master, bachelor, PhD, that's fine as well. But what I would like to convey is, let's focus on the key challenges that we are facing and try to solve them. It doesn't make sense if you're going to have like 10 years, path to get your PhD, and then the hackers would be do something else the other hand. So let's focus on the real world challenges and try to solve those.
Thanks for that answer. So Renasha, do you want to close it off?
We don't have any questions from the audience. I would also like to just ask youth, anybody, if you all have any cybersecurity concerns, you could put them in the chat.
If I may, moderators, we do have a question from someone on the floor.
Hi, good afternoon. Kirk Sukram from Trinidad and Tobago. A question to the panel, and very encouraged to hear at a youth forum cybersecurity is being discussed. But from where I sit, I have a question for the panel. Do you see it more a role of the government to drive cybersecurity initiatives, or do you see it more of a personal responsibility of the individual?
I think it's a combination. Sometimes you don't know that you don't know, and then someone should take the lead, and it could be the government or educational institutions in that particular case. You may have a knife and you don't know the dangers of that knife. So someone would tell you, okay, you can cut bread with this, but you can also kill yourself with it. So I think it's twofold. It depends. It depends in which country you are. If people are very cybersecurity savvy, if I can put it like that, in that country, then maybe the government can focus on other things. But if that's not the case, I do see a role for governments to promote more resiliency with respect to cybersecurity in that particular country. So I think it's twofold.
I would like to intervene here and add to that. I think actually it's really a multifaceted, multi-stakeholder approach that is required. So for instance, if you look at the whole cybersecurity outfit, at some point we have to look at the laws and the policies for which governments are responsible for, and they need to be informed by the data that's happening on the ground. There needs to be a technical team such as a CISO to be able to respond to incidents. You need to have the team that deals with what would be HR strategies to hire for cybersecurity, because that is a tricky element in itself. But at the organizational level and at the people level, the individual level, we need to embrace something called the culture of cybersecurity. And what we mean by a culture of cybersecurity, it's a way in which even the most ordinary person, be it a young person who is using the internet or an elderly person who isn't even aware of TikTok, they need to be able to identify the basic elements of what is malicious behavior online, and to be able to know what to do about it. Is it that I turn off my computer, I leave it on? Can I identify a phishing attack, a scam email? What to do when something happens? And this culture of cybersecurity is something that is an individual responsibility, but I would say there's also a huge role for academic institutions, and as Nancy had mentioned, Internet Society chapters, to continue promoting why having this culture of cybersecurity is important. Identify malicious behaviors, identify the authorities that treat with malicious behaviors, know how to report them, and I think that's just a very basic element of how everyone can play a role in this sort of cyber resilient, cyber hygienic environment that we would like to operate in.
I do agree with Kevin's point that it's a multifaceted approach because take for instance, I think it was last week they in the US social security numbers was leaked, I think 2.7 billion. So again, it's both the government and the people, both the enabling environment as well as the people. So I do agree with Kevin.
Thank you for those great answers, panelists. We do have one more question in the Q&A chat, but I invite the panelists to answer that question within the Q&A chat. If the time constraints, we'll have to move on to the next panel discussion. So thank you again for joining us today and reiterating the fact that we really need to be careful online, as not everyone has the intentions, not everyone is your friend, as you would say, and for bringing attention to the need for regional harmonization in our data protection laws and policy, as well as bringing cybersecurity awareness, as well as the opportunities for careers in cybersecurity to youth. So thank you very much, panelists, for this session, and we'll move on to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'd like to now invite Ms. Naomi Padmore and Ms. Shanelli McPherson. This is going to be the fourth panel discussion based on bridging the digital divide, ensuring inclusive access for Caribbean youth, persons with disabilities, and a vulnerable population. Let's give a round of applause for our moderators.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Please excuse the video quality coming through. See if I can adjust my background.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for those joining us. Go ahead, Naomi.
No problem. I'll just go with my video off. But thank you all for being here. I'm pleased to welcome you to this important session we're having on bridging the digital divide. We've had many important conversations thus far, and at this juncture, we'll be talking about access and usage for those of our populations that are vulnerable, speaking to the youth, persons with disabilities, and other vulnerable populations that may not be classified in those two groupings. I am Naomi Padmore, as mentioned. I am great. I am Naomi Padmore. I'm a member of the planning committee here at the CYIGF. On my day today, I'm a site reliability engineer, and it's my pleasure to be co-moderating with Chanel McPherson.
Yeah, thank you, Naomi. Hi, everyone. My name is Chanel McPherson, third-year university student and moderator with Naomi. You may continue. Yeah.
Right. So today we'd have some quite esteemed panelists joining us today. We have Keegan Patrick, who I've had the pleasure of working with before. He's the CEO at Optronics based in St. Lucia, and he's also youth envoy to the ITU Generation Connect, along with many other titles. We have Mr. Kirk Sukram, who you heard from just recently asking a question. He's the Deputy CEO of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. And we have Ms. Beverly Pillay, head of the National Commission on Disability in Guyana.
We also have with us Mr. Shane Cornelius, and who is a member of Guyanese Presidential Youth Advisory Council, Mr. Royston Emmanuel, Senior Technical Specialist in the Education Management Unit, OECS.
Right. So our discussions today, as the title would suggest, we'll be focusing on how we can address these persisting gaps, which could be the result of many factors, some including limited access to the internet for some groups within our societies, variable digital literacy, and significant disparities in our socioeconomic standing. And so our discussions today will be revolving around how we can ensure that more to all of our youth and those from underserved backgrounds and those with disabilities can get to access the internet and use it in a way that they can feel empowered and contribute to society. So I'll be kicking things off with a discussion centered on the youth perspective. So I would invite Keegan and Shane to answer these couple questions. So I know both of them are championing the youth cause, and they sit on various boards and they're on different committees, and they have, Keegan's case, hosted, I know, programs to expose youth to technology and give them a platform to use it in ways that they may not have considered or believed that they could. So to you gentlemen, what are some of the pressing concerns that youth that you have encountered or not encountered personally have raised with you in your respective countries?
Thank you for opening the discussion, Naomi. I think, as you said, one of the critical issues is digital literacy. And I think from the very first time we started Optronics 4 years ago, we've been trying to tackle that problem and increase access and knowledge to new digital tools. While I think we've come a long way within the Caribbean, where while many of our youths now have access to more devices, there's often still the lack of necessary skills to effectively use these tools for learning, entrepreneurship, and employment. We've been working to bridge this gap through Optronics, so we've hosted many digital literacy programs, STEM training programs, whether it's with Python or teaching persons, how to make use of new emerging digital tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, or making them more informed use of them within their day-to-day lives, whether it's in entrepreneurship and whether it's in school or as a business owner or an employee. So to help them make use of these new tools and see how can they make their jobs more efficient. Then we also see a lot of the times where we host some of our programs over in different rural areas as we try to go throughout the island in St. Lucia, and sometimes we're also in other islands, there's still some economic barriers for some families that simply cannot afford the latest technologies or new devices to get their kids online, which still leaves a lot of young people at a disadvantage when it comes to competing in a global digital economy. So this is where I think in areas where we can see public-private partnerships can make a huge impact, whether it's through subsidies or programs that make these devices more affordable to those that are in need. Or some initiatives that we're personally working on is setting up innovation hubs in Caribbean islands to serve as a place for bringing young minds and entrepreneurs together in a co-working space and giving them access to these technologies, because we believe they will be able to make use of them to create new businesses and create new ideas. So from our perspective at Optronics, those are some of the issues that we see and how we're trying to tackle them in some shape or form.
Great.
Thank you for that, Mr. Patrick. And just advising me, on the panel today, we have Mr. Sukram and Mr. Patrick. Those are the only two persons we have on our panels. Okay.
Great. So Keegan also spoke about the communication with different partners, so be it from the public sector, the private sector. Can you talk about any challenges that you've experienced? Has it been a smooth process, the engagement with different stakeholders, or is it a one-man team pushing, and then when we reach to the close to the finish point, you're getting contributors coming in?
I think it's always tough. I think my biggest problem is speed. As a smaller organization, we always try to move as fast as possible and break down walls and just run through everything as fast as possible. On the other end of the spectrum, there's maybe a little bit more tape. Things take a little longer to execute, a little longer to plan. I think it's really about understanding the different vantage points from your organization, your mission, and also your other stakeholders, and trying to build relationships and figure out, okay, who's the people you can talk to, who's the people that can champion your mission and help you move things forward as fast as possible. So I think one, for me, the biggest challenge is always speed. Two, I think partnerships are inherently hard among people. So it's always about building relationships and seeing who can you connect with, building those relationships, and trying to get everybody aligned on the same mission so that you're moving forward to some impactful goal that could help many people. So whether you're from the private sector vantage point, a government standpoint, or you're a really large corporate entity that's trying to work with a smaller entity to see what corporate social responsibility initiatives you could work on together.
Okay, great, thank you. So now we would switch focus to our regulatory and policymaking standpoint. So we just heard from what it's like championing this cause from the private sector. And so let's go on to the public sector standpoint of things. So Mr. Sukram, are you there? So based on the seats that you hold, what you would say are the measures that already have been started and those that are in train to tackle at national and regional levels the issue of the digital divide, and us as youth in the Caribbean being able to keep pace with a rapidly evolving global tech environment?
Thank you. So I work at the regulator in Trinidad and Tobago, that's the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. So my response would be along the lines of the regulatory standpoint, but I'll blend it with some policy positions that we have taken through this time. So key to our mandate, or enshrined within our mandate, are three objects, which is key to bridging that digital divide, as well as keeping pace with the globally evolving or rapidly globally evolving technology landscape. That's the orderly development of the telecommunications sector, promoting and protecting the interests of the public as it relates to access, affordability, quality, and variety of telecommunication services. And for us as well, enshrined in our mandate, we have universal access to telecommunication services for all persons in Trinidad and Tobago. And the last object there is what we use today to ensure that all persons are connected. So with this, we have a universal service fund. And with this fund, we've been able to undertake initiatives to essentially connect the unconnected within Trinidad and Tobago. And that includes marginalized groups. So for example, persons with disabilities, as well as areas that we identify as underserved. And we've identified those areas not arbitrarily. We actually did surveys within Trinidad and Tobago to help identify areas that are most in need as it relates to those that don't have much access to be it broadband internet or other forms of connectivity, which we see as the platform for engaging in the world today as well as benefiting from the wealth of information and content and services that you can access via the internet. But it all starts with the liberalization of the telecommunications sector, and as a regulator, we're mandated to ensure that that's a sustainable development. And one of the key areas within our responsibility is reducing barriers to entry within an orderly manner. And it could be in terms of more players in the market, so we have more competition. Also, in terms of digital technologies, ICT devices, ensuring the orderly development and use of those devices within Trinidad and Tobago. For example, within the last recent couple of years, we've been looking at drones that persons would import to use for various purposes. And we've had to develop a means in where we can reduce that barrier of entry of persons being able to bring these devices in country. And in terms of looking at the marginalized groups, we've essentially engaged in a number of initiatives. One is focusing on persons with disabilities. We've been able to develop a universal service initiative where we can subsidize access to smartphones that have accessibility technologies built into them, so they can connect to the internet, they can make a call, they can interact with their friends and the rest of society in a manner that you and I can do so very easily. We've also, and this is coming out of the pandemic, had to deal with connectivity on a much grander scale, because now there's need not to be connected from a community level, but also from an individual level as well. And for this, we had initiatives that focused on providing students, particularly students, with tablet devices that have with it mobile broadband internet so that they can access school remotely back then. And they're still in use today for them to get access to online learning resources. So these are some of the regulatory initiatives and some of the policy decisions we've made to ensure that, from a national perspective, we keep pace with the technology and also in closing that digital gap, which is evolving as well, because you have what is broadband last 2 years ago. The need for broadband now is at a much higher speed to ensure that you can access the content-rich internet that you have available to you today. So that in itself is essentially a moving target. So I guess I'll stop there for now in terms of the question and allow the moderators to move on.
Oh, well, thank you for that comprehensive answer. Things that stood out, the Universal Access Service Fund, liberation of the telecommunications sector, ensuring that connectivity is happening at both community and individual levels. But just would like to follow up, Kirk, Mr. Sugra, with so we're looking specifically at the point of being competitive. So you spoke about accessing the internet, going on social media, maybe communicating with, friends, family. But what about doing the work or doing activities that takes the youth from just being mere consumers to actually creating content or doing work to put out there into the digital space? In that regard, you need things to go beyond just a smartphone, and we'll need to go to your tablets and, better yet, laptops, desktops. What, I guess, from your standpoint at heart, what is the outlook on getting youth the access they need to the next level of technology, not just hardware, but perhaps software, to help them be producers of content and be contributors at a global level?
Yes, that very important question from, moving from a consumer to a creator. And for us, it starts with initiatives, targeted initiatives and outreach programs. I can give you a couple examples from the regulator standpoint. What we saw as a gap along with the digital divide, which is basically access and affordability to services, there was also a digital skills gap. And this was across the board, not just with youths, but also with, general public. However, we focused on youth programs, and there are two programs that we have every year. One is Girls in ICT, and over the last 2 years, we've introduced our Boys in ICT as well. And it focused on essentially giving youths an opportunity to be skilled up so that they can move from being consumers to creators. It started with us just, ensuring that they know how to utilize the internet safely. So, some basic cyber safe rules. So now, we've gone as far as showing them how they can create mobile apps on their own, how they can utilize the internet in some whatever entrepreneurship business that they may have. This year, the focus of the Girls in ICT was to use AI, in leadership and in terms of their business ideas or entrepreneurship. And on the Boys in ICT side, we focused our outreach program, similar event, along the same lines of entrepreneurship and utilizing the internet, all the vast resources that are available there, to actually, build a business on your own as opposed to trying to get into the mainstay and the tradition of going to work for someone. And that's from a regulatory standpoint. On the government side, and this is through the Ministry of Digital Transformation, they had a wonderful initiative that they started a few years back coming out of the pandemic, and that was a developers hub. And this is to promote local development in software and application, as well as training of the local and youthful talent or capacity, so that we can prepare them not for today's world, but tomorrow's world as well. And they had several projects that came out of that, some of which might see its way in the public sector, because what they sought to solve via a competition that they did to really bring that developers hub to light was to propose solutions to real problems that ministries had, and ICT solutions at that. So basically you had them building software and building a solution that interacts not just with government, but with the public as well. And then to demonstrate that solution to a wide audience, and they had it in the form of a competition. So these are some of the targeted initiatives that have been done to take youths from the level of being consumers to the level of being creators.
Thank you so much, Cook. I actually watched the D-Hub finals on TTT Live. It was quite inspirational, as a lot of my peers participated in that competition. So hopefully we can have something spanning into other Caribbean territories like that, if it doesn't exist already. So I will now hand you over to Chanel, who will talk to you about how the digital divide particularly impacts those that are quite vulnerable in our societies.
Thank you, Naomi. And basically my question is, as youths who are passionate about making the technical community both inclusive and accessible, we want to channel our focus on the bridging the digital divide for persons with disabilities and the vulnerable population. Now, my question is, are there equal opportunities in tech for persons with disabilities and for the underserved communities? There's no right or wrong answer for this, Mr. Patrick. But from your perspective, do you believe that there is any employment, or is there any equal opportunity for these persons within the tech space?
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, I most definitely can. So my question is, are there any equal opportunities for persons with disabilities and underserved communities, specifically in tech education and employment?
So it's tough to quantify or get an idea of how do we measure equal in terms of opportunities. So I guess when I start off thinking about, okay, how do we make sure that we have equal access to opportunities for persons from whatever backgrounds within any industry, I think I always think about, okay, how do we measure equal and what is equal? Because from one standpoint, I think about, okay, we're trying to ensure that we're able to, one, give opportunities and ensure that we're able to make sure there's participation from everybody within our society. And then on the other standpoint, we want to ensure that we're able to maximize our ability to, like from the private sector standpoint, maximize our ability to bring in revenue with whatever we believe is like the best resources that we could find. So we're balancing those two things. How do we give it equal opportunity, and how do we also find our best talent, whoever that might be? So that's how I think of the two things that we try to balance. Do I think at this standpoint that opportunities are spread across equally? I don't think so. I think there's still efforts that need to be made to ensure that we're trying to reach everybody. We're still operating in that balance between meritocracy and equality, and that we're making sure that we have diverse opinions from our different sectors. Because although we might be an organization that's looking to ensure, okay, we get the best people, but we also want to ensure that we have diverse views that allows us to incorporate with our products, our services, get the standpoint of everybody within our society and our economy, which increases participation from everybody else. Because let's say if I'm building a product, it is good to have the standpoint of somebody that has maybe accessibility issues and give their standpoint, okay, how can we make this product better? And that person brings additional value to the organization, and they're basically essential. They're not there because we feel that we needed to tick a box to say, hey, we've created equal opportunity, but we actually realized this is an essential position in our organization, and they're helping us bring in more revenue from their initiatives or their point of view of ensuring that we have more persons using our platform or using our product that we just released. Because we don't just want this sector of people, we want as many people using our product, our platform as much as possible, because that helps us and that's beneficial to us as an organization. So those are the two things I think about balancing whenever I make those type of decisions. And even though we want to increase our social impact as much as possible, we want to also make sure that our organizations are sustainable and growing.
Very good input, Mr. Patrick, ensuring that these persons, if they are to come in your organization, that they're contributing, making your technologies accessible and reaching a broader audience. Very good points there. And on that note, for Mr. Sukram, what steps can organizations, regulators, and educational institutions take to ensure that persons with disabilities and other underserved communities are given equal opportunities?
Yes, thanks. And if I may add, I mean, I see that there are a lot of opportunities, but they may not be as equal for those marginalized groups, such as persons with disabilities, at-risk youth. And for this, at least speaking from Trinidad and Tobago's perspective, there are some programs to help upskill those marginalized groups to put them on par with other more privileged groups in terms of being able to seize those opportunities when they do arise. For example, our Ministry of Digital Transformation launched last year a digital skills program focused on at youths, persons in underserved areas, to give them opportunities that they may not necessarily have to upskill their ability, their knowledge, and to expose them to opportunities within the ICT world. At this point in time, the Telecommunications Authority, as well as the ITU and the Ministry of Digital Transformation, are in discussion about expanding that digital skills program to persons with disabilities and to at-risk youths as well, because these are two marginalized groups that we see that, they need that extra push to be able to take advantage of these opportunities that are available today, because the nature of most ICT jobs, right, would afford persons with disabilities, at-risk youths, majority of persons, the opportunity to participate in those jobs. Most of those jobs are desk jobs, as opposed to jobs where you need to be on the field where it's very physical. Particularly for persons with disabilities, it presents a good opportunity as a career path, for example.
Thank you for that. So we just heard from Mr. Sukram about some of the initiatives that are currently being taken place throughout the Caribbean for these underserved communities and persons with disabilities as well. Now, let's talk about accessibility to tech training. I know we touched on a few points earlier. However, for persons, with disabilities, and we're talking about even the elderly and the indigenous people, what are some best practices and approaches that can be used to reach and strengthen the capacity of the underserved communities to ensure that, no one is left behind? And I mean, you may be able to answer this question, Mr. Patrick, by, even for your organization, is there anything that's in place to help these persons?
So I think
in the tech space.
Yeah, I think one way we try to maximize our accessibility to our programs is trying to do somewhat of a hybrid format where we identify some of the rural areas and locations that we want to go to. We make use of ICT centers that they might have in those communities. We host the programs there, as well as we also try to do video recordings or live sessions as well for persons that maybe not able to come, and they also digitally literate enough to sign on and pay attention through the virtual platforms, but we also try to increase our footprint by making use of physical infrastructure. One of the most recent initiatives that we're embarking on right now through a partnership with our local government is the setup of an innovation hub in St. Lucia. And that will serve as a co-working space designed to foster digital education, innovation, and really with the aim of bridging our digital divide within St. Lucia, giving more access to young people to new tools, maybe their first Oculus 3 that they're able to develop something on, or access to Mac PCs to develop mobile applications for the Apple devices as well. So we're giving them access to those tools that maybe they might not have had access to before, or the Vision Pros of the world, and just the new technologies to help our young developers, our young persons that are interested in technology, giving them the skills within the hub and also going out and build some of their own products.
Well, Mr. Patrick, I'm truly happy to hear that we have organizations that are in full effect and contributing to these underserved communities. And for us as youths, persons who are joining virtually, youths in the audience, and us in general, we are technically known as the digital natives because we were born in a time where, technology is a thing. And we have been grown up into this era. Now, this question is for you, Mr. Patrick, while we have you here. What role can we play, youths play, in bridging the digital gap for persons with disabilities and the vulnerable population? What more can we do? How can we help to ensure that these initiatives, so that we can help perhaps our community members, our family members, just persons in general, to ensure that they get the skills or the training required to bridge this digital gap?
I think
Moderators,
yes.
moderators, if I may, we have a person in the crowd or in person that has a question to ask from their end.
Okay.
Hi. It's more of a suggestion. So I'm speaking from a Guyana context. Post-COVID, coming out of COVID going back into schools, one of the things that I was part of a team that did, we approached a energy company here and we got about 100 and something used computers. We then got volunteers from the University of Guyana, private sector, the police force, etc. And they came, fix, install open source software. I see my friend Mr. Kisoon is here. He'll be proud that I made that statement. And we then gave it to persons who needed systems. So that basically included a private sector, an energy company, the poor, the vulnerable. Fun fact, most of the homes were single parents homes that requested. And we were able to get to every single region of Guyana, even region 9, which is all the way towards the Brazilian border. It's an example of something simple and practical. I know I'm a computer engineer, so I'm speaking from the top. So we could talk about the apps, we could talk about our access to Android, and as the Google developer for Guyana, I could speak to that. But I think it's critical for us to understand where we sit in the global south and the solutions that are required to get the most vulnerable people in the hierarchy of vulnerable people that we'll have in our different countries. And I think it is from a youth perspective that we look at persons who just don't have no devices. Of course, there's going to be connectivity, and we have discussed that across the Caribbean over the years before COVID and now post-COVID, but they are communities that the people still just do not have a PC. And an important part, as we talk about skills and youth, when we were able to provide 2 or 3 of these PCs to one area, the natural thing, we asked a private company and they gave an old switch. And I'm sure we all know a private company or two who every 2 to 3 years would upgrade the equipment. Now, they may not have the latest and greatest equipment, but a switch is something you change every couple of years if you're a bank. A router is something, if you're a big company, 2 to 3, 4 years, you get that old switch. Don't dump it and throw it in storage. Look for, and I think it's an excellent project for the Youth Internet Governance Forum to look at across the region. We have private companies, we have regional companies that get rid. I know there was an e-waste agenda some years ago that was a lot of long, lengthy words, but I am talking about something practical, measurable. So by the time we have the next Youth Internet Governance Forum, we can agree that in every single Caribbean country, we have at least 2 private sector companies that agrees that at the end of 2 to 3 years, I will give you my old switch, I will give you my working computer, and I'll work with Mr. Kisoon to make sure that we install what is Ubuntu or either one of the Unix distributions, even the educational one, that allows for persons in the Caribbean to get access to the system. And lastly, the switching and the routing is important to me because some of these places, if they can create a network within themselves, who knows, coming out of those communities can be a next network tech who could now filter into those same private sector companies who would have donated old unused equipment. Thank you.
Wonderful suggestion. Of course, we're taking note of that from the youth here at this event. And
Moderators,
yes,
we also have a comment here to make from your very own, Mr. Ramdan. Nick?
Thanks, Jennifer. So just to further with that comment that was made, as well as to pivot off what Kirk was saying with some of the programs that are happening in Trinidad and Tobago. So firstly, one of the things I was going to contribute to the end of the session is exactly what he said, that really bridging the digital divide is not, something that one entity could do. It isn't just the role of the regulator, the role of the NGOs, the role of the end users, but a collaborative approach, as he rightfully said. And I really like his suggestion that, looking towards the next CYIGF, let's come and see, well, what projects have been done and what progress has been made. And so I could speak for Trinidad and Tobago to say that the IEEE, which is an NGO of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, right now they are looking at some community outreach projects where they can solicit global funding for projects similar to this. So I just want to put that plug out there that, there are other NGOs that are willing to work with agencies, whether it be the regulators, et cetera, or other NGOs to, fill the gaps that exist and, whether it be procure devices, do training, et cetera. So I just want to add that in as well from the Trinidad and Tobago context. Thank you.
Thank you there, Tariq. My apologies, I said Nikin instead. Also have a comment or question to make by Mr. Kassoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vidyar Kassoon. I'm from Guyana. I'm just mindful as I look at this particular panel, which is about inclusivity, and I don't know that the panel is, I don't know if you have sign language or any other kind of, and I look around the audience, I don't even know how accessible the panel itself was. And I'm just mindful that those of us who are able-bodied and so on, this is something coming from a tech background. We're always conscious that we had bias against persons with disabilities. And there's something that happens now. I mean, Agri, thank you for bringing up the whole idea of open source solutions. And so that we have to also think about as we bridge the digital, and unfortunately in the Caribbean, we have slowed down a little bit on the gap about how we talk about things like free and open source software and technologies to help to bridge that divide and also to avoid obsolescence. And there's a whole parallel conversation about open standards, etc. Because we're already seeing where, we're being told that our working equipment will become outdated next year because Windows 11 wouldn't work on it, etc. Right? So just to bear that in mind, and just to also ask that I know that from friends with disabilities and from adults, others with disabilities, that some of the tech, the accessible technologies are expensive. Because that's how the market works and how capitalism works. So somebody has to pay for those technologies, even if when they exist. And it's for us to perhaps advocate. I think you asked what's the role of the government and the state, and we have to start thinking that if persons with disabilities have rights of access, that they should, then we should have systems in place if we have to pay for those technologies which are more expensive, that they are paid, if they are available and that they are bought. And we put that on an agenda. And I ask that generally, not necessarily for you, but for you to be mindful of that, to ask for these things of our governments. Because in our rights, access, equality, I think the question was asked, what is equality? It does mean removing barriers. And cost is very often one of the barriers to remove. So just throwing that out there. Thanks.
Understood. Well, thank you, everyone. This was very informative. As we wrap up this session on bridging the digital divide and ensuring inclusive access for the Caribbean youths, persons with disabilities.
I believe you're muted on your end.
I am muted. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chanel. I'm not sure if it's coming through to those business lines.
Can you hear me? No?
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. All right, guys. So as we wrap up this discussion on bridging digital divide, ensuring inclusive access of the Caribbean youth, persons with disability, and the vulnerable population, I just want to thank our panelists for their thoughtful contribution and their insights that they have shared today. Thank you, everyone.
Just before we wrap up, we do have a comment in the chat. A question around brain drain, essentially, and how tech sectors in more developed countries are more appealing to our citizens here in the Caribbean? And what can, I know the government is mentioned here, but taking from what we just heard from our live attendees, what can we do? What multi-stakeholder approach can we take to make tech that we create here in the Caribbean that is taken more seriously, serves multiple people, including the differently abled, and is a viable career path, and it's not just some desk job for someone to be a technician or an analyst doing multiple things. So I don't know if we have time to answer that, but panelists, you can feel free to respond in the chat. Yeah, so thank you so much for your question.
Should I respond in the chat or should I respond verbally?
You may respond
do we
in the
have
chat,
time?
Mr. Patrick,
Okay, yeah.
because of constraint of time.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem.
Take your response in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you once again, guys. That has been a very engaging conversation indeed. Listening there, I'm reflecting on the job that I do at the Office of the Prime Minister and how we try to work with the vulnerable communities. But hopefully I can get to answer those questions as well in the chat. Moving on, this is going to be quite an interesting conversation. We're going to discuss how we can turn clicks into cash. I hope you do enjoy this conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was previously introduced. My name is Chanel McPherson. Well, I believe that this is one of the most anticipated panel. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the moderator. It's because this is one of the most asked Caribbean questions. How can we simply earn from doing things that we enjoy doing? And well, for this discussion, we're going to talk about turning clicks into cash, overcoming challenges and advancing monetization for Caribbean content creators. So in this panel, we will highlight the journey towards monetizing online content in the Caribbean, addressing current gaps and challenges, and featuring insights from successful content creators on strategies to navigate these obstacles. On the panel with me, I have Kyle.
Ms. McPherson, we're having some audio issues. If you can speak up for us, please.
Okay.
And before you can begin again, I'd just like to give a housekeeping rule here. Tomorrow would be our reception. My team has indicated to me, so we'll be happy to see you back again tomorrow for our reception, which will be held at 18 hours right here at the Pegasus Hotel. So let's commence the discussion once again. Over to you, Ms. McPherson, and if you can just speak up for us. Many persons here are excited how they can turn clicks into cash.
I'm sure we all are. Are you able to hear me any better?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Okay.
If you can turn your camera on for us. Great.
Okay. Sure. So on this panel with me, I have Mr. Kyle Maloney, co-founder and director of Tech Beach Retreat. We also have Ms. Jennifer Prasad Badu, communications professional attached to the Office of the Prime Minister of Guyana. And we have Ms. Karen Rose, founder of Digipreneur and also a content creator. Now, we had conducted a survey to gain some insights from Caribbean content creators on how we can help improve monetization opportunities and provide support in our region. One of the many things that came to our attention in the survey was that the impact of geographic barriers to monetizing content. Now, we know that content creation and making money from producing content comes from the persons consuming. And in many cases, we have YouTube, TikTok, and other persons from perhaps countries like, for example, the US, Canada, UK, Switzerland, who subsequently are making more revenues than persons living within our specific region. Now, what are some challenges that you have faced making a living through content creation? And this question, I will pass this over to Ms. Karen Rose. Oh, Karen Rose is here, right?
Yes, Chanel, good afternoon.
Mr. Karen Rose, yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chanel.
Of course.
All right, so what challenges have I faced when it comes to earning a living as a content creator? Now, I personally have not faced challenges when it comes to monetization or earning. And that's really because as I started out as a business owner. So I started out as a tech blogger, and that quickly turned into me opening up a mobile store. So I had a brick and mortar location where I was able to sell the products. And I think one of the reasons why I've never struggled to monetize is because when people think about monetization, they're only ever thinking about getting paid for viewership of their content. But there are a multitude of ways for you to monetize. Simply having a product and being a content creator where you're creating your content and you're driving people back to that product. And once they're purchasing, that is one form of monetization. So when you start to explore the various types of ways that you could monetize and using your content as a vehicle to drive traffic to whatever product or service you're looking at people to buy, you're not going to be limited. Now, if you're thinking only about monetizing off of Instagram, TikTok Shop, Facebook Shop, there are geo restrictions on those platforms, right? And this is where it's extremely important for people to start learning about e-commerce. So even for me, when I had my brick and mortar store and I closed that down, I built an online platform and I made it e-commerce ready, I was still monetizing through my content, because after I would make my blogs, my videos, and podcast episodes, the next logical step people would have or ask is, where can I purchase the products you're talking about? And I would effectively drive that traffic back to my website and close sales through my website. Again, that is a major form of monetization. So from monetizing through the products I was selling, it got to a point where the brand that I had built became so big that more business owners were asking, hey, who built your website? How are you selling online? And then they wanted to start doing courses with me. So I started to have workshops teaching other business owners how to build the e-commerce tools so that they could start selling online. That's another form of monetization. So it just kept on building where all of the monetization streams for me were available from day one. And I was never limited to just trying to monetize YouTube or monetize off of Facebook or Instagram. And I think that's one of the challenges that content creators in the Caribbean have not done. They have never sat down and learned about all of the other monetization streams. That way they could start earning money a lot earlier in the process. And people are just waiting and waiting and waiting, hoping that Instagram one day allows them to start monetizing. TikTok allows them to start monetizing. But if you start learning about the other monetization streams, then when those things do become available, if they become available, it's just going to be another added revenue stream for your brand.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rose. Appreciate that. And I'm going to follow up with you in just a short while on those different avenues, right? But I'll save that thought. I'll follow up with you on that. Now, for you, Mr. Maloney, these barriers that some Caribbean content creators have identified, you know, has it impacted your content creation journey? And, you know, even if it have not impacted your journey, what are some strategies you have been using to, you know, minimize impacts
All right.
throughout your career?
All right. First of all, Chanel, thanks for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity to have this discourse. To be clear, I am not a creator in the way that Keron is, and other creators have really positioned themselves to build a brand around the content that they put out and monetize that in whatever way. Tech Beach is the leading technology convening platform in the Caribbean. We convene the best players globally in technology, having some of the best partnerships with the likes of like Google, Microsoft, TikTok, and we bring these players into the region so that creators, businesses can really leverage these partnerships and benefit from this overall community that we've put together, right? And so the way that I leverage content isn't in that way to see an end monetization from I'm creating this thing to be able to either, like Karen said, sell a product or have brand partnerships in that way. Mine is more around my personal brand identity and people having a perception of me in a certain way that aligns with my overall brand with my company, and then my own personal brand, right? So that is more so in the way that we take it. But to double down on Karen's point, I think we within the region have a sort of short view based on the interactions that I've had with creators overall, whereby the target has always been, hey, let me create this content to work with this brand, and then also just work with this brand in this country, right? So I think the view is short from two perspectives. One is that we think that just because we're from the region, we can't be partnering with global brands. That's a myth. I think if we can begin to have a broader narrative around the content that we create, and we're seeing it a little bit with the entertainment content creators, where they don't say, well, this is funny for Trinidad, but this is funny for the Caribbean. And so you have a wider audience that they're appealing to the Caribbean as a whole, and then the Caribbean diaspora. And so you're seeing that their content and their following really blow up significantly within the entertainment space. But if they can even begin going beyond that and to create content that is like even more entertain, it can speak to a wider demographic as well, even within their Caribbean focus, that gives the opportunity to have even more global brand partnerships, right? So that's one. But then two, I think the big play that has always been missing, that we see the global content creators do time and time and time again, and the Kim Kardashian being like the best example of like Kim and Skims, and then Kylie and Kylie Kit, I think the biggest opportunity is in the productization of the brand that you've built. And that ultimately needs to be the end goal, not how much views I can get to partner with NCB in Jamaica or Republic in Trinidad or whoever else. It needs to be, we're building this brand so that I now become that conduit for productization, and what products that I can now distribute and sell through my platforms, and not just become a brand partner or brand face and getting a tiny sliver of the value that you're ultimately creating for these brands,
Thank you so much for that, Maloney, Mr. Maloney. And we spoke about, being that product for your own brand, right? And this question goes out for Mr. Rose. While we're, in the process of, becoming and promoting the brand and, advancing or monetization, there are some skills and some development that needs to be taken in consideration for us to be better and to become more than what we are currently. Now, as for aspiring content creators, they would like to get started, but they're not quite sure where to start. What skills or knowledge or equipment would you recommend, or can you say that they will need in order to start producing their content, and how can they grow to their fullest potential?
So the biggest thing that all content creators need to do is have that paradigm shift and understand that their brand has to be a business, right? If you're just using social media to gain followers, get likes, and just using it for fun, then everybody's going to treat it or treat you like you're only doing this for fun, and it's not going to go anywhere, right? Content creators need to understand the business of content. And one of the first things I recommend to every content creator is there's a book called Content Inc. by Joe Pulizzi. And it is learning how to build a content.
We can't see it. We can't see it. For some reason, we kind of block up there. All right, good.
There we go.
Wait, no, we still not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. I don't know if anybody else seeing it.
Oh my goodness.
All right, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So Content Inc. I'll try not to move too much. But cool. Content Inc. by Joe Pulizzi is a book, and it's an entire blueprint on how to build a content-first business, utilizing content and learning how to build all of the revenue streams around that content and turning it into a business. If a content creator doesn't understand how to use their content to build a business, then they're never going to make any money. It's never going to be sustainable, right? So forget the equipment, right? You need to understand, how do I build a content-first business? Because the majority of the content creators that you see are only using their phones to shoot their content, right? It's only when they get real big in the dance and they've started to make some dollars, do they start to invest in things like a DJI Pocket or a DSLR and whatever other fancy tools that are available. But the majority of content creators are just using their phones to create content. So you can start with just your phone. The most important piece of equipment is to try to get yourself a nice little microphone, because even if the video quality is not the greatest, we could still watch okay video, but we can't listen to you if your audio is not good. So any type of microphone will definitely go a long way. But I really believe it starts with understanding the business of content. So even when I started out first some years ago, because I started off blogging to help grow a business, that shaped everything, and it gave me the foundation, because the content wasn't to get likes or the content wasn't to get popular. The content was to educate people about technology, which then led them to buying the product, which then led them to coming to workshops, which then led them to coming to events. That's already multiple streams of income right there. So even though Kyle might not be the average content creator, when he creates content, the more he builds his brand is the more he's funneling people into the Tech Beach Retreat event. That is a form of monetization. And where content creators in the Caribbean are really struggling is there's no point to your content. There's no end result to your content. The whole entire goal for them is just popularity. But popularity doesn't mean that you're going to get paid. The majority of the most popular content creators are broke or have a full-time job. They're not making money off of the content. So you have to understand the business of content. You need to understand, are we going to be driving this traffic to a product? Are we driving it to a service? Are we going to be doing affiliate marketing where we're driving people to a affiliate partner so that we can earn commissions off of things that we talk about? And the sooner that content creators realize that is when they're going to really start to make money. And I'll use a great example because it's fresh. Look at a guy like Certified Samson, who has hit 1 million followers on multiple platforms. You would have noticed for years, and he was just talking about this on an interview, for years he wasn't making money. He was just hoping somebody threw him some dollars to promote something. But things changed when he got into a product business. So he first came out with the certified lollies. So he had the lollies, he was selling that. And now he's just elevated and opened up Certified Scoops, his own ice cream store. And when last have you seen an ice cream store ram out 24/7, right? I mean, it's new, the hype is there, no problem. But he's understanding that he has to take that large following and he has to drive it to a product if he is looking to earn business. Think Kim Kardashian with Skims. Think Kylie Jenner with the cosmetic line. Think Rihanna with her Fenty makeup, right? Rihanna's earning more money off of selling Fenty products than she ever made doing music. But she used the popularity from building that music career and she's funneled it into Fenty Cosmetics. So when content creators can start thinking like business owners, understanding the business of content, driving traffic to a product, a service, an event, and not just hoping for brand partnerships, because that makes up such a small percentage of your overall revenue. And oh God, it's the Caribbean. There's only so many brands you can work with before we, the audience, get fed up with you and don't even want to hear from you or then buy the products that you're recommending. And then the businesses realize, okay, they're washed out. They really don't have no influence. You have to start learning how to build that business early on.
Thank you so much for that insight. I see Kyle agreeing with you. DeAndre, I see that you have your hand up. I hope that I pronounced your name right. Okay, I'm not hearing from DeAndre. So if anything, DeAndre, you can always come on, or you can let us know if you would like to speak or ask the panelists or comment on something that was said before. Now, this question I have here is for Miss Jennifer Boodoo, I should say. Now, let's talk about audience engagement, boosting interaction. Now, many of these content creators in the Caribbean mention that the need for better engagement with their audience. How can they boost interaction? So, Miss Jennifer, in your opinion, what are some strategies for increasing audience engagement and turning followers into paying customers?
Firstly, thank you so much for letting me join this forum. I just want to place this out there that I am not an active content creator as I was when I was younger, and I do believe that I am still pretty young. I came from a communications background, particularly state media, and I continue to work within the state agencies as well. I do believe, before I answer your question, I have to agree with my other two colleagues, whereas building your brand is pretty important. Gaining trust from persons, gaining trust from your followers as well. Coming from a communications background and working within the news media, more so the state media as well, you made sure that your news that you carried, whether persons don't want to listen to it or not, they will tune in and they will see what is happening from a government's perspective. From there, I think I created a following, whereas persons would see a young person being aware of news and current affairs, and I continue to do that as well, also being a former television host as well with state media. So you create that support from persons who see the work that you're doing and they can trust what you're saying as well. While I'm now in the outreach and I still remain in public relations at the Office of the Prime Minister, I once again try to reach out to my followers by letting them know this is what we're doing and this is how you can be a part of this revolution within the ICT sector. You mentioned trying to boost your interaction. While I may not be quote unquote making that clicks to pay or rather clicks to cash, I have engaged many persons with persons, like I said, believing in what you say, and that's why you have to be so careful of what you're saying online, because there's always a bite back, I can say, or there's always a clash. You have to be cognizant of what you say online and making persons believe you. I do believe in also a constant posting of what you are in your portfolio or your brand as well. I'm within the ICT sector, so I will continue to post what the government of Guyana is doing, and also regionally, internationally, so persons could say, this is what I saw on this page, and I could probably go and check it out. I will try to inform myself, or else I can follow the pages that they suggest as well. Like I mentioned before, I am not a continuing content creator, and this is something that I would like to get back in, but there are so many other persons within, I could speak of a Guyanese context, there are so many persons that we see on social media platforms, Facebook, the now trending quote-unquote TikTok. Instagram, YouTube as well, that persons believe in. They see Guyanese posting and they continue to post, they continue to build a trend, they continue to build a pattern, and from there they will continue to follow. I do believe, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you might not say something that someone agrees with, but they will continue to follow your page. So that is your part to say if you want to continue along that route, or if you want to change your mindset and let them see that I can agree with this person, while I may not fully 100% see eye to eye, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, I can still trust what they're saying and also continue to follow them in that. One full example is the Visit Guyana page. We have other persons that do food reviews within Guyana, and once again, I can speak on a Guyanese context. So I would say, I see a new restaurant, who can I check? And then I will check certain persons within Guyana, and I will be like, okay, I read these reviews, I can check it out for myself. Persons within the Caribbean are also Guyanese context. They can either make it or break that business. So once again, it's constant interactions, constant posting. That's something really important, and also always being aware of what's happening beyond social media, so you can be a part of that change as well. Also, with regards to some of the questions you're asking in following or also understanding social media, I do believe it's important that you read. And I saw one of the panelists, they brought a book, and I'm a fan of Mr. Rose as well, so I watched some of his stuff online, so I'm happy to share the forum here with him. Facebook is constantly changing. Sometimes you see something online that's happening 2-3 days ago, and the next day it's completely changed. So you have to continue reading, seeing what's happening. Facebook offers a Meta business place. That's something really important that persons should be abreast on. Of TikTok also offer those stuff as well. So reading, also being engaged on those social media platforms and their do's and don'ts is important in order to boost your interactions.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. And we had a comment from DeAndre. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. If you'd like to unmute and speak with the panels, then you can do so. DeAndre, or Deidre, I should say. So no response from Deidre? Okay, so we're going to open the floor for questions and answer from our audience.
All right, Nick. Tarek, I'm going to leave the floor to you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and thanks to all the panelists. This is some very good discussions that we had here. So I've been following Karan's content for a while now as well. He was the last CYIGF and CIGF moderator, and I know he produces a lot of content on how to monetize your content. Now, in the Caribbean in particular, when we look at the providers, so we've heard a lot from the creators. When we look at the provider's point of view, so YouTube, Meta, TikTok, their typical affiliate programs or the ways to monetize their content is not so much covered in the Caribbean. Not at all, I think. I could be wrong. There may be some countries that do have it. But if it is that we had to, say, take an output from this forum, that we could then ask, say, the CTU or other agencies that might be here to take forward to these providers, what would be, the next steps, or what would be the focal points that you, the content creators, would really like to be taken out of this discussion to, better, one, promote the content creation in the Caribbean, two, support the whole monetization and, having that income stream or having that job in content creation. So yeah, I just want to put that out to the panelists. Thank you very much.
Karen, you're on mute. Not hearing you. Say it like that.
Oh, I said I'll let Kyle go first because he has all the fancy connections.
No. Actually, I was gonna ask him to repeat because it had broken up on my end. So if the moderator could kind of recap it for me, so I could respond properly. Apologies. Chanel, you there?
Yes, Tariq.
Hi, so thanks again. Sorry about the technical problems. Yeah, so if we had to take, a step of actions or understand, well, what would be the next steps, understanding that there are gaps in the whole monetizing of Caribbean content from the provider's point of view, so that's, say, YouTube, Meta, TikTok as examples, what would be the actions that you would want to see the regulators or intergovernmental agencies like CTU take coming out of this forum?
Oh, okay. So given that I engage with all these social platforms, the big ones, I do engage with Snap. So I engage with Google, Meta, TikTok, YouTube, and I've had conversations with each of them at relatively senior levels about why they haven't really had presence in the region. Jamaica has always been the first one to get turned on. Like, I think monetization is available in Jamaica on YouTube. Is really visibility, right, and presence. Like, and we don't have visibility in the face of a lot of these brands, and we're a small region. When they just like begin to like do their planning, they just look and ask themselves like, where is the big populations? Let's make sure we go there. Turn on monetization as quickly as possible, because we're trying to make the most money as possible. And so when the biggest English-speaking country only has 2.8 million people or something, and then Trinidad is the next with 1.45, depending on how much immigrants you count, right? Documented or undocumented. And then Guyana, I think, is the next, right? Like, with just under 1 million people. Like, we just don't have the numbers. And so in order for us to be able to fight a case, we need to stop fighting individual causes, right? So I would want organizations like the CTU to be able to say, listen, we represent the Caribbean, and we think that there's tremendous opportunity here, that we can provide X type partnerships, access, et cetera, to be able to make the case for opening up these opportunities within the region. And I think it'll be absolutely transformative for the potential of what this sort of foreign revenue can mean. But the next thing as well is that the revenue that is earned as well is that just because it's turned on, the revenue that we'd make in, let's say, our region compared to revenue that would be made like if you were in the US would be pretty different, much less, because of just the fact of how much money is being spent in our region in that way. And so it is less. But the point is the opportunity now open. And so I'm hoping that there is some sort of initiative internally. I can collaborate with whoever to be able to open some of these doors, to have these conversations, to see what is possible. But there's interest, but we just don't have the cohesiveness to go forward, I think.
So from my standpoint, the only social media platform that we're able to monetize is YouTube. So I actually have a video on my YouTube channel with a content creator by the name of Devon X Scott. And we did a 1-hour breakdown where we actually logged into his backend and we went through all the different parameters to set up your accounts, what you need to even qualify. Because most people that are asking about monetization don't even qualify. Like, just not about an hour ago, I posted on my own Instagram. I'm like, I'm almost at the qualifying levels to monetize from my YouTube channel, right? And if you don't know, to monetize on YouTube, you need 4,000 watch hours within 365 days, and you need to have 1,000 subscribers, right? The kicker is having the 4,000 hours within 365 days. So every day you're either gaining or you're losing if the old views are dropping off in that 1-year period. And we go through the entire process and we show how much money Devon is making from his YouTube views. And we go through the cost per clicks, all of that stuff. So I have that video on my YouTube channel. Just look for my name and Devon X Scott. Now, even when we went through that whole entire thing, Devon was breaking down that YouTube is still not even his biggest earner when it comes to creating content. He really earns his money off of affiliate marketing and then also off of his services. So for me, what I want to take away from this conversation is we need to start creating some classes where we can teach the content creators the business of content. Because the conversation of constantly monetizing social media, the only people who are running that down are the people who don't understand the 20 other ways to monetize. For me, this is one of the last pieces of monetization that I'm going to add to my entire repertoire because I'm monetizing in a million other ways. I'm already being booked, flown out to speak, do workshops, do conferences. I have affiliate marketing, so I'm making, like as we were talking about, me and Kyle were just joking in the chat, he just bought the book that I recommended, Content Inc., and I was too late on the draw to drop my affiliate link in the chat. But if he used my affiliate link, I would have just earned commission off of that. So when you start to understand the other ways, are we going to get into drop shipping? Are we going to get into white labeling? Are we going to get into opening up membership courses? When you start to learn all the other ways of monetization, then you're never worried about getting paid from YouTube or Instagram or Facebook because those things still pale in comparison to all of the other mechanisms that you can get paid. And as a content creator, you should be looking at your revenue streams like a gigantic pie. You should want to have multiple digital streams coming in. And if you want an idea if you want a quick idea as to what those streams are, if you actually just Google my name, Karen Rose, and how do content creators make money, I've written articles about it in Newsday in Trinidad, in Jamaica Observer, on my website, podcast episodes. And then again, you can always get the Content Inc. Book, and then you could learn all the different ways. And then you could start to figure out what ways can I start to implement within my brand so that I can start generating sustainable income? Because trust and believe, when one revenue stream is not streaming enough, when it's not revenuing enough for you, the other revenue streams, if you've built them correctly, are definitely going to be coming into play. So for me, I'm not worried about getting paid off of watches or social media, because I know I have products, I know I have courses. When I get booked to do workshops, when I get booked to speak, those are the big high ticket items where if I do one speaking gig a month, I'm actually okay. I'm good. I could relax. So everything else is just adding to the pot. So what I want to see is more content creators learning the business. And I think the CTU and all the other stakeholders, we could always come together and we could start figuring out how do we start to train up our content creators to be more business minded and learn about the other monetization streams and put that infrastructure in to go from just being a content creator that's popular to actually having a business model behind it. And regardless of who you look at, Mr. Beast is a great example. Every one of them have a business, and that's really where they're making their money.
Yeah, just to add quickly to what Karen is saying, one thing you don't hear about as much until you're in the content creator community is how much they cry about when the algorithms change and you was making money one month and then next month you're like broke and you're like, what the hell is going on? You're calling YouTube, you're calling TikTok, you're calling friends, you're calling wherever, and you're like, why is this stuff not going viral anymore? Or why did the same content pay me less? And you're like, what the hell to do? You know, like you don't hear about that, right? Like, because you're only focused on the top cream tier, the top 0.1% of the creators, that it is in the incentive of the platforms to ensure that their content continues to produce well, while the vast majority of everybody else is just like slave to the algorithm and they kind of don't care, you know, like you figure it out, right? You know, and so when that happens, your income that was tens of thousands one month go to like near nothing, and you don't hear about that cycle unless you're within the circle, you know. And so that when that happens to you is when you realize you're like, oh my God, I was too much trying to get my revenue from this one source. I need to diversify, when that should have just been the play in the first place, you know? Yeah.
Thank you for answering that question, gentlemen. Very, very good recommendation and insights. Do we have any more questions from our audience that are there on the ground or online?
Just a comment from my end. I fully agree with my two colleagues there speaking about what to do in moving forward, but also at the same time, with the team turning clicks into cash, these two gentlemen are a perfect example. They're making sure that their brand identity has now allowed them to turn clicks into cash by just being here as well and speaking to you and making you think as well, our young people who are here and also online, what can I do to become just like them? So that's a perfect example. And if I may, many Trinidadians here, the username Certified Samson has become so popular within the Caribbean, West Indies, that if you say the word Ezekiel, you might get very quote-unquote scared and worried. That young man has now created a business because of what he has done on social media, and according to him, he did so because he wanted to have fun, he was consistent, and he just wanted to show that he has a love or a natural talent for acting and also social media as well. So while it's important to monetize, it's also important to continue to build your brand as a person, and it's important as well to not, for the lack of a better term, not be burnt out because social media and also, or rather the internet, has that effect on you as well. And that's my closing comment for my discussion.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your comment. Tariq, here, I believe this is a question from Tariq. As content creators, what can you all do to protect your intellectual property rights of the content you create and leverage your unique Caribbean content and experience to monetize your content? I believe that's the question from Tariq.
Get yourself an intellectual property lawyer. So any of your brand deals, you want to get a lawyer that specializes in intellectual property rights, because that's going to help you with licensing of your content and how your content gets used, where it gets used. What happens is so many of our content creators enter into agreements, or rather, they don't even enter into agreements. They just have a handshake agreement with a brand. They start creating content, and that brand is now able to use their content, use their likeness and their image from now until thy kingdom come. You have people that you're seeing their faces from when they were in the teens, and because they never had an agreement in terms of where their face and their likeness could be used, it's showing up everywhere. And even, 10 plus years later, we see that happening all the time. So if you want to protect yourself whenever you are getting into any arrangements with any brand, you should definitely work with an intellectual property owner, whether they're the ones helping you create your contracts to work with brands, or if a brand is giving you the contract, you want to then send that over to somebody that specializes in IP, have them vetted so that they can now protect your best interests, and you know exactly where your content is going to be used, how it's going to be used, how long it's going to be used, because when brands want to start to utilize your content outside of the parameters, you can also make additional money. So you don't want to leave money on the table just because you had a handshake agreement and you were just happy to work with the brand. So your intellectual property lawyers are going to be your best friends as a content creator.
Thank you so much, Karan. And as we're about to wrap up, if you guys have any more questions, you guys can post it in the chat, and our panelists will be happy to answer that for you. Gentlemen, also Jennifer, we want to thank you all for sharing your valuable insights on this important topic, turning clicks into cash, overcoming challenges, and advancing monetization for Caribbean content creators. Thank you all.
As we wind things down this afternoon, that is, our final speaker for today is the Director of AI, Automation and Analytics, Incus Services Limited, who will give us an overview of the transformative impact of artificial intelligence on private sector businesses and how it can be leveraged here in the Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please welcome Mr. Leslie Lee Fook?
So good afternoon, everybody. Guys, so it's tough when you follow people like Kyle and Karen. They're pioneers in what they're doing in the territory. So guys, before we start, give them a big round of applause, please. Love to get that back. All right, lovely. So guys, great to connect with you guys. And nice to be back at the CTU events. I love doing the CTU events. The great thing about working with the CTU is that you guys are actually what Kyle and Karen are talking about. You're banding the region together so that we could have more impact. And by the end of the session today, I want to be able to show you guys how to do exactly that using artificial intelligence. Now, I do have a very, very short slot today, so I'll do my best to give you everything that I could possibly give you to be successful with AI by the end of the session. But I need you to do one thing, guys, and I need you guys to participate. So if there's a mic that I could hear the audience, please feel free to leave that mic open. I'd love to be able to interact with you guys. The reality is, when we all went to school, we were taught to sit in the back of the room and be what? And be quiet. And for that reason, things that went in one ear and it came out the other. And we didn't absorb stuff. So the more you participate, the more you ask questions, the more you raise your hands, like the more you get involved, is the more you retain. In fact, studies show that you retain 90% more content when you're interacting. So I want you guys to interact as best as possible. I apologize for not being in person. I had 3 events today, but I'll do my best to deliver over Zoom. So in the spirit of participation, guys, I want a couple of you to go ahead, take out your phones and give us a quick snap. And I'll show you guys what we're going to walk through here. And maybe some of the online attendees could also give me a hand here. Is that cool? So a couple of people in the audience, go ahead, give us a quick scan. Because I don't want to just talk about AI. I want to actually, guys, get you to experience AI. Is that all right? All right, cool. So when you give it a quick scan, this is pretty much what you guys are going to, oh, is my thing not showing? All right, cool. So I think I missed it. I didn't have my display up. So here it is, guys. Go ahead, give it a quick scan. I'll give you guys 5 seconds to do that. All right, wonderful. So for the online attendees, I want you to give me a hand. I want you guys to tell me, what are 3 things that you hate doing that you'd love to delegate to somebody else? And I'll just complete this. It's going to ask me, for the folks that scanned it, you're going to get a little bit of a chat bot, but it's going to ask you for your name, your job title. It's going to ask you, oops, your job title, your organization's name. It's going to ask you for an email address so it could send you the results. Cool. And then, what are 3 things that you guys absolutely hate doing that you want to delegate to the rest of your team? Let me know in the chat. Karen is real Leslie for now. Sending emails. What else you guys doing? Writing emails, ordering stock, selling. Okay, cool. Let's see, I'll put that in. Writing minutes, or who likes minutes? And I'll come back to this in a second, guys. All right, beautiful. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for that. So what are we going to cover today? I only had about 15 minutes, unfortunately. So we're going to do a quick intro into like what AI is. I know a very large part of you guys here, you're already started off on your AI journey. The thing is, most people, they have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle. I want to be able to put all of those pieces together so you get the whole picture today. So I will go into a framework, because the reality is tools come, tools go. And a lot of us we're experimenting with the tools, but we don't have a system. We don't have a framework to successfully implement AI to really cut costs, and more than that, to be more impactful in organizations. So I'll share my framework, but I'll also talk about one opportunity because I want you guys to experience it as well. And a big question I get is, what's the impact on the workforce when we start cutting costs, right? Because a lot of people are worried about automation and what that's going to mean for their job. So I'll scratch on that as well. Now, the framework I was talking about is this. It's Incus Intelligence Framework. And it's really because of the biggest problem that I see with most leaders in the industry today. And this probably is not a concern for a lot of you guys here. Most of you guys are very technical inclined. But what I see is most leaders are intimidated by technology. They're intimidated by AI, and they're not quite sure where to start. And what that means is they end up doing nothing. So we all know here that if you're using the same old strategies from before COVID, then you're losing customers every single day. So by the end of it, I'll be able to walk you through this particular framework here. But it's the 6 steps that you need to take to really be able to implement AI successfully. So you not only improve your service quality, you're not only cutting costs, you're not only buying back time, but you're able to become a leader in your industry. I'll only be able to scratch on the first one, which is consciousness, was helping you spot the opportunities. But consciousness, the way I like to think about it is, I mean, how many of you guys have been on a plane before? Right? A plane will take you from Trinidad to Guyana, Guyana to Miami. We understand what the vehicle does for us, but do we understand what aviation is? Do we understand lift? Do we understand drag? Do we understand a lot of those aviation concepts? Not really. And that's how you should approach AI. As a leader, it's really more important to understand what the vehicle will do for you as opposed to the technicalities of the vehicle itself. Now, since we spent a little time together, guys, would it be okay if I shared a little bit about how I got here, some of the things that happened to me on my journey, how AI helped me, and some of the mistakes I made just to help you guys get there a little faster. Would that be all right? All right, cool. So after helping thousands of people, I've trained and mentored thousands of people on data, on AI, and I've helped hundreds of companies to solve million-dollar problems using artificial intelligence. What I realized that pretty much at people at all skill levels in the organization, at people in different industries, is that there are a couple of patterns, and I want to share those patterns with you. But when most people think about me, and most people refer to me, they call me the data millionaire. And when I get to this number, I'll retire. But today, my job is to convince you guys to become millionaires as well. This is one of the coolest things I ever did in my life. And this was the CTU's Prime Minister Summit, where I was asked to come and motivate prime ministers into action, right? And my life really changed when I met the CTU, because I understood what like these types of organizations do from an impact perspective. So I'm happy to see you guys here. But today, when most people see me, they see me with government leaders, with presidents, with prime ministers, with CEOs, with captains in industry, even sometimes celebrities. I don't know if you have any Beanie Man fans here today, but the reality is that it wasn't always like this. So there are these 4 letters that make me extremely uncomfortable. It's COXX, and it's actually not what you think it is. It's actually my A-level results. So I got a C in GP, I got an O in chemistry, I got an X in biology, and I got an X in math. Now, why am I sharing these very embarrassing results with you guys? Is that because most people today, they think that to be successful with AI, you need to be a data scientist. You need to be good at math. I never even did computer science in school, to show you guys. But I realized that by about 2016, I realized that this AI thing was coming. But my problem is that I couldn't code, I couldn't program. How do I become, proficient at AI if I don't have any of these things? So I did some research, and I found a company that was doing something in 2016 that was transformative. It blew my mind. And in a nutshell, at the same point in time where data scientist was the sexiest job in the world, and they were making $1 million a year US, you know what I mean? They were very highly sought after. It was a company that was doing something called automated machine learning. Well, what is that? They were already automating data scientists. So I called them up, and I subscribed to one of their training programs, and I was being trained with 30 of their salespeople. And for me, this was perfect because I'm not technical. So I go in there, and by it's a 5-day program. By lunchtime on the first day, I am lost. And we're having a little water cooler conversation. And what I found out is that to sell the platform, you actually needed a master's in statistics. And that wasn't me. But I'd already booked my trip in Boston, so I stuck around in the training. And by day 5, they said go to something called Kaggle. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kaggle. But Kaggle is basically this online data science competition that attracts the best data scientists in the world. So like Netflix will post a data set, and they will say $1 million bounty for the data scientist that gives us the best model. So the best data scientists, they all live and breathe in Kaggle. So on day 5 of the training there, when I got there, I took a data set, I put it into the platform, I hit a big red start button. I came back 30 minutes later, I took the results, and I put those results into the platform. And on that day, I became the 43rd best data scientist in the world. Because I could hit a big start button, pretty much. And when I realized that, look, this highly complicated, this highly sophisticated job called data science was already being automated, I started to worry about me. I'm nowhere close to like one of the smartest people, even in my house, much less on the planet. And if their jobs were being automated, what about my jobs? So we as leaders in the region, we need to start considering like not only what our jobs are going to look like in the future, but what our team's jobs are going to look like, what our people, because as leaders, our responsibility is to take care of our people. Nevertheless, I came back to the region after, and by 2018, life was good. I was training data scientists across the whole territory. I trained lots of actuaries. I trained people in the financial sector services, and life was great. And then this happened. And the whole world, it went into lockdown. And we were all now working remotely. And for me, it wasn't terrible at first. I've personally been working remotely since 2015. But for the team, you could see their faces, right? There was a huge adjustment, like engagement was really low. And as time went on, we saw a lot of mental health issues. And ultimately, that led to massive performance dips. I mean, how many of you guys here also experienced performance dips during COVID? How many of you guys saw mental health issues? If not for you personally, for family members when we were locked down. So at that point in time, because of the performance problems, we have, I had pretty much 3 choices, right? I had, one, I could get rid of everybody. And I did think about it a couple of times. And I feel bad saying about it now, but we're a small company, and I thought it might be easier if we just started over, started with fresh people. So that was option 1. Option 2 was I found myself every single day on our daily meetings, and we would be talking about what we're going to do. We come back the next day and nothing is done. So I felt like I was trying to beat people into work. I was trying to beat people into submission. And then the last thing that we could do is we could find better ways for people to work. And that's what we did. So given our background in AI, what we started to do is build a little AI that was good at one task, right? If you think about AI today, you're going to hear the term called narrow AI. What is narrow AI? Think about AI like a toaster versus an oven. So the oven, you could do lots of things. You could cook, you could boil, you could bake, you could fry, you could do all of those things. But a toaster is really good at just what? Toasting bread. And that's where AI is today. It's only really good at one particular task. So we started to develop AI that was good at one task, and I gave it to my team. Now, immediately, this is crazy, productivity went through the roof. They were able to do the exact same things that they were doing before in a fraction of the time, and they were now able to be more strategic. Now, we went out after that, and we went crazy. We bought every single platform. We basically acquired over 200 different AI systems. We spent millions of dollars on AI, and we started to train every single person in our team on AI. So every single person, whether they're in sales, finance, marketing, IT, operations, they all learned AI. Now, I'm not saying this is what you should do, because my team hated me for a little while. But after purchasing all of those platforms, after developing all the systems, after buying all the training out there, there's one crucial thing that everybody seems to miss. And it's this, guys. It's that process will set you free. What do I mean by that? Is that we were at the same time, we were developing all of our processes for all of our things in our organization. Now that we had our processes and we had AI that could do individual tasks in our processes, what do you think we did? We just connected our AI together until we inadvertently, and this is crazy, guys, we inadvertently created a robot army. And today, it's my humble opinion that we're about 7 years ahead of the market. And the reality is, like, for today, for every one person in our organization, we have 10 AI systems. What does that mean for you? That means picture yourself coming to the office one day or logging in online, And it's funny, like I logged into the prep session yesterday for the CTU, and there was more AI than people in attendance. And that's what the workforce of the future is going to look like, where we have more AI than people. But this is ultimately how we've been able to scale, reduce costs, and still maintain service excellence. So what does it have to do with you guys? And the answer is everything. So if you think about, like, anybody ever done time management or productivity training, you'd have done something called time blocking. What is time blocking? Why is that important? So time blocking is this great productivity hack where you have 8 hours in a day, and for the 8 hours, you carve it up into 1 hour blocks, and you do one task per hour. So at the end of the day, the typical knowledge worker, and you all are knowledge workers here, have done 8 tasks, right? No big math there. At the end of the year, the typical knowledge worker does 9,600 tasks, right? No big math. When we started to look back at what our AI was doing autonomously, we were doing over 10,000 tasks a day, fully autonomously. That's a job of one person for an entire year. We had inadvertently added 365 people to our team without a dollar on payroll. Our robot army had 18 extra workforce. Like, what if you did that in your organization? What would that mean for your customers? What would that mean for your citizens? What would that mean for your stakeholders? So today, 14 years ago, we were focused on just small companies just in Trinidad and Tobago. And today, our market stretches from Bermuda all the way to Suriname. We serve nearly 30 countries, with about 45 million people across the entire territory. So we have a much larger addressable market. And I say this not to brag, guys, but to say, if you want, this could be a story as well. So really ask yourselves, do you want to be the disruptor, or do you want to be the disrupted? I have 3 big takeaways for you guys. And my first big takeaway is this, is that one, is that your present circumstances, they do not define your future. So wherever you guys in your own journey, I know you guys are talking about content creation, some of you guys in leadership positions, some people are rethinking, because people still are exiting organizations, rethinking what their careers could look like. Wherever you are, guys, it doesn't define where you're going to be in the future. Second thing I realized is that AI will impact everyone. And even more than that, even deeper than that, the thing I'm not seeing people talking about is this, is that hyper-automation will affect everybody. What is hyper-automation? Most people are thinking about, how do I use AI for marketing? How do I use AI for customer service? But the reality is the AI that we have today, it understands everything. And I'll go in a little deeper into that. But AI will impact everyone. And last but not least, I believe AI is the #1 way to have an unbreakable career, an unbreakable business, an unbreakable life. So if we take a step back, how would you describe AI? So the way I like to think about AI, and again, this is not terribly academic, is I like to think about AI like an employee. Best employee you could ever find. It's an employee that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They don't take breaks. They don't get sick. They don't have bad days. They don't take holidays. They don't call the union. It's an employee that never forgets. They can store and recall massive amounts of information so that you never need to repeat yourself. It's an employee that's a lightning quick problem solver. They can store and recall massive amounts of information, as I mentioned, but they can identify problems, patterns, trends, and fix those problems even before you know you have a problem. It's an employee that's a continuous learner. Every single transaction that happens in your organization, it's learning, it's improving, it's getting better. And the scary one for me, it's an employee that is very experienced and adaptable. What I mean by that, it understands HR, marketing, sales, finance, IT, operations, risk, legal, policy, government, everything out there. Now, when I look at the market, I'm seeing really 2 types of organizations today. I'm seeing an elite group of individuals that are running towards AI right now. They're looking for every edge, every opportunity, every chance to integrate AI into all aspects of their operations. These organizations are the disruptors, and they will widen the digital divide so big Well, you guys know the story, right? Or the disrupted, the ones that continue to do things in the same old way. And one day when they wake up, there's absolutely no catching up. So question is, guys, do you want to be disruptor or do you want to be the disrupted? Now, study after study shows that there's a massive first mover advantage. So when you look outside, what you're seeing is this massive gold rush towards AI. Every organization now is an AI organization. Every software company is integrating AI and becoming an AI platform, an AI software out there. Because the first movers, they get everything. First movers get 90% of the market. Late adopters, they will get the balance of the market. They share the 10% that's left over. Now, when you think about first movers, they're companies like Coke, like Kellogg, like Amazon. I'm not going into detail here, guys, but these companies might be daunting to us when we think about it. But all of you guys, the story behind these companies, they started off really small. Amazon, as you guys know, was started in a guy's garage. So do you want to be the first mover or do you want to be the late adopter, guys? Now, this technology there's always some buzzy technology about. There's always blockchain, crypto, this, that, the other. AI is nothing new. AI has been around for ages. But why is this different? And it's these three main things. One is it has broad knowledge. AI knows everything. It knows IT, sales, finance, IT, operations, medical, healthcare, legal. It knows everything because the same pool of information that when you have tough questions in life, what do? You Google it. It's learned from those things. So it knows everything, has broad capabilities. It is easy to use. So all of you guys here could use Google. I'm not saying that's the best way to use it, but that ultimately, guys, is the base skill set to use these tools. And for the guys who are here using, already dabbling with AI, what are you paying right now? Nothing. It's free. So it knows everything. Everybody could use it, and it's free. And that's why this stuff is here to stay. So that's why I believe the workforce of the future is going to look like this, guys. I'm going to skip over because I look like my time is almost out. But job loss is going to be a huge thing. You take the half cup, your cup is half full or half empty approach. We're first movers. And like every single day, I do about 2 weeks worth of work in what I used to do before I had AI. But I have more clients, I have more business, I have more people knocking at my door. There's an exponentially larger market. I am the first mover in my market, and I'm giving big brands a run for their money, big companies a run for their money. Everybody else is going to wake up one morning, and all of their customers are gone. The choice is yours, guys. Do you take the scarcity or the abundance mindset? Now, the last thing I want to show you guys is pretty much this. So Jen, you're the last one that came in. So Jen, for example, Jen said the three things or the things that she doesn't want to do are here. Jen is at OPM, right? And if you think about it, guys, from a recruitment perspective, if you have a couple of tasks that you hate doing, you first get those tasks, you do a justification. So Jen doesn't want to do memos, procurement, write in minutes, right? So what do you want to do? You want to probably delegate that to somebody. You hire somebody else in the organization, right? But to hire somebody else, you have to go do a justification. You have to go write a JD. You have to understand what the interview questions are. You have to go interview for these people. You have to go advertise for the post. You have to do a questionnaire. You have to do an onboarding plan. You have to do acceptance letters. You have to do rejection letters. Like all those assets put together, they take weeks of work. Jen just gave me these three things. So she needs an administrative assistant, right? This is the justification that we wrote. This is the job description that we wrote. This is social media post, images for the social media post. And I'm going to go through quickly. Interview scoring criteria, interview questions, interview score sheets, offer letter, rejection letter, on a 21-day onboarding plan. This is what we teach them on day 1. This is what we teach them on day 2, on day 3, all the way for 3 weeks, so that they know exactly what they need to do to start in the organization. And the thing is, guys, it's not just about HR. It's about everything. Marketing, sales, finance, IT, operations. So initially, you guys asked me about saving cost. But for the first movers, it's not about saving cost, guys. It's about creating more opportunity for the organizations. Now, I'll close in saying this, guys, is that, in the old world, it used to be the first world countries. It used to be the big companies with deep pockets that could afford this technology, that could do these things. In this industrial revolution, in this new world that we live in, it's not the big fish that eat the small fish. It's the fast fish that eat the slow fish. So do you guys want to be fast fish or do you want to be slow fish? Ultimately, guys, I was only able to scratch on level 1 of the framework, but I want you guys to take this framework, and if you're interested, you could use it. In terms of a recap, we covered what is AI, impact on the workforce, opportunities, and I just showed one really today in terms of operational excellence. I've given you a framework, and if you guys have time, I have a quick bonus to give you guys. Do you guys have time for a quick bonus? If not, I'm okay with that. Didn't hear anybody? So the reality is probably asking yourselves, how do you stay ahead of the curve? And it's one thing, guys. There's one skill that we all need to learn, and it's the ability to delegate to AI. So at the start, I only had 15 minutes, but I promised to give you guys everything that you needed. So I do have a pretty amazing workshop. It's $250 a seat. For the folks that stayed here, it shows how dedicated you are to getting up to the next level, because it's 5 p.m. at the end of our conference. So for the folks here, for each organization that's in attendance, I'm going to give you guys 10 seats for each of the organizations that are here to our next workshop. That's over $2,500 in value, and I'm just giving it for you because you're here. So congratulations, guys. Cool. I'll give you that for a sec. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Leslie. That was extremely interactive, and I'm sure many of you can agree. In the interest of time, I'll allow 2 to 3 questions, if there are any at this moment. Any questions from your end? I guess it was so good of a presentation that everything was perfectly said. Ladies and gentlemen, before we bring Ms. Gabrielle Johnson to deliver the closing remarks, I'd like to end off with, once again, something to think about. The internet is a lot like a good joke. It's all about timing, delivery, and occasionally knowing when to unplug. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now invite Ms. Gabrielle Johnson of the CTU Youth ICT Network and also Mr. Tariq Mohammed to deliver the closing remarks.
Tariq. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Tariq, you can go first.
Okay, thanks, Gabby. So we've had a very, very packed and interactive session this afternoon. We first started off hearing from Martin on that whole overview of internet governance, carrying us through sort of that history and forward-looking. We then engaged in a number of panels touching, well, so many issues: digital divide, cybersecurity, monetizing Caribbean content, and then we all kind of closed it back with this very interactive session from Leslie, which I really enjoyed. The slides were amazing. So quite apart from that little wrap-up, I just want to engage you all and see, well, what were some of the parts of this afternoon session that you all enjoyed or what you all didn't? So yeah, there are mics on the table. Anyone would like to say, well, what they enjoyed most? I see you point at the mic. Hear you. No, not you, Carol. Yeah, just take up the mic. It's a forum. Come on, let's go.
All right, so good afternoon, everybody. So one takeaway is that I like the engagement with the youths, both, well, only for you here in person, but for online, yes, we have different countries in the Caribbean. Honestly speaking, I would have been expecting more youths in person here to have a larger discussion. But for some reason, that's fine. But maybe we're looking forward for that youth engagement, youth network, youth sustain, and reliability information next time.
That'll be great. And we would, oh yes, go right ahead.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Sitting here this afternoon listening to all of our presenters, one thing I couldn't help to notice is that the approach that they used to reach out to youths, first of all. Youths, we are the future. Secondly, the approach of coming with the assumption that people don't know, for example, what is AI or how powerful is the internet. And I think one of our biggest problem in the world right now in terms of communication is when somebody is trying to put over a point or explain something from his or her department, they speak with the assumption that people understand what is out there in the world. But for example, what I've heard here today from presenters in terms of AI and how powerful is the internet and what we can do to better ourselves, I think it was a good approach. I personally benefited a lot, and I think the other youths like me have benefited a lot. Thank you.
Wonderful, and that's so great, and I'm glad that you enjoyed that. What we typically do in these internet governance forums is, well, how many of you have heard about internet governance and internet governance forums before today? The youth, right? Okay, we have you, but you don't count, Martin, put your hand down. But the lowered hand shows that many people don't know about it. And then when I advertise this internet governance forum, CTO has put out a bunch of ads, done a lot of marketing, you'd say, what is that? What is Internet Governance Forum? And I say, well, boy, it is everything. It is everything. And you don't need to be a technical person. You don't need to be an engineer to participate or understand these discussions. We invite you, whoever you are, to come because it's a bottom-up approach. We want to hear from everybody, the end users, the regulators, and everyone else involved to understand how we can shape the internet in the Caribbean region. So it was great to hear from you all. With respect, oh, yes?
Hi. So I would like to make a suggestion. I have gone to city events, I don't know, in Nigel for the last, 10 years plus? Yeah. So I started at a very young age. I think my first time I went to an event, Cleveland Thomas had invited me. I was about 19 in Trinidad or Antigua, between those two countries. And I'm 35 now, right? So I'll tell you my age, let's say 10 years, I've been 25, and before that I've been invited from university days and that kind of thing. And I want to make a recommendation to the CTU. And I think this young man said something very kindly and politely, but I'm going to be a bit more pointed. The CTU usually rides into CARICOM member state, have an event. When the event is over, right, you have a social, we lime, we talk about the history, or last time I see Mr. Kisoon, he see me, I gain weight, I lose weight. But I want to suggest a change come next year. Here's the change I want to suggest. When you are deciding to go into a territory, whether it be from Suriname to the Bahamas in the north, you come one day before, pay one more set of money at the airport, all right? One more night at the hotel, because I understand how these conferences work. And you ask the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, if it's 3-4 of them that are traveling and you work with the persons in the country, to go one day, and ask them for two, just one. In that day, you go into the mall. You have an open lecture explaining to the regular man in the street. You ever get hacked on Facebook? All right. Come Thursday or Wednesday, we can talk about some legal things, not too technical, but putting governance models and management models in place to help protect you, the citizens, from a regulatory standpoint, university standpoint, etc. Go into the mall, especially the youth arm, right? In particular, go into the malls and everything, because I know next year go into another country, next month, next quarter, whatever. So that's one. Suggestion 2, when you come to the day early, you take, whether it be a technical school or university, you find the head of department, find the provost, and each island have some technical school or something of the sort. And you engage them and you have some information session in that particular territory where you inform, so I can give you Guyana context. GTI, you go to GTI, the entire, I know the head of the IT department there, ask him, say, listen, we want to talk to you all a little bit about introduce what internet governance is, and there's different aspects, talk about LACNIC, etc. So when students come out and they matriculate out of those programs, they will, one, they'll follow your Facebook page and they'll come to your events, that's one. Two, at the University of Guyana, all right, you engage the head of the department there and have them, okay, we're going to have this session, we're going to talk about this and this. A 1 hour session, half an hour, it doesn't matter. But it will help deeper participation in CARICOM states as you continue to go forward. So 5 years from now, the persons online and sitting in the room at your events, the faces will be different. Of course, we'll see Mr. Kisuna and myself once I'm around, but there will be a fresh batch of persons who, one, would be experienced, two, would want to share, and then three, would want to share a different perspective, which is important for staying relevant and growing going forward. Those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you. Nigel, would you like to respond to that, or?
Thanks for the comments. I think I take it in the spirit of deepening the engagement, right, and thinking long term in terms of how can your impact be sustainable, right? And the youth IGF is one of the initiatives that we've taken, but what you've suggested could be like a marginal cost on a trip, so that could also be taken into account. Thank you.
And just on the point in youth engagement, as I mentioned at the start, the CTU is also trying to develop a Caribbean Youth and ICT network. So we are still sort of working out the kinks to that. And if you are at all interested, please let us know, reach out to us. We have a form and contact information that we could share with you and anyone online that's interested as well. So yeah, taking it one step further from simply internet governance and into the entire sphere of ICT. So with that little recap, I know I went over time, and I just want to hand over to Gabby now to just close the session. And thanks so much again, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon again. My name is Gabrielle Johnson, and I'm one of the founding members of the CYIGF committee. So as we draw to a close today, I really want to express my sincere gratitude to all of our speakers, our moderators, and participants for your invaluable contributions. The discussions that we've had today are not just conversations, they are the blueprints for action as we navigate the complex digital landscape. From empowering our youth to take charge of global internet governance to addressing the pressing issues of cybersecurity, privacy, and inclusivity, every session has underscored a critical aspect of our shared digital future. We've seen how youth empowerment, robust cybersecurity measures, and inclusive access can transform the Caribbean's digital ecosystem. The insights shared on monetization strategies for content creators, the importance of AI in boosting business efficiency, and the role of emerging technologies in shaping our future have been nothing short of enlightening. These discussions will serve as a catalyst for the changes we need to see, ensuring that our digital policies are not only progressive, but also inclusive and sustainable. So as we leave here today, let us carry forward the momentum we've built. Let's continue to collaborate, innovate, and advocate for a digital future that benefits all, especially the youth, who are the torchbearers of tomorrow. So thank you once again for your participation and engagement. Together, we are making strides towards a digital Caribbean that is secure, inclusive, and thriving. So I'd like to say safe travels to those who may be heading back today or tomorrow, and see you at the next CYIGF. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just one last announcement from my end on behalf of CTU. It's being asked as well if you can kindly fill out their survey, which is placed on the CIGF event page under the tab Event Evaluation. And also I'm reminding you once again, we start promptly at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We have a lot to discuss. We hope that you make it on time. We also will be discussing tomorrow, we will focus on the better use of today's open internet standards, data for good, and also inspiration from good practices, actions. Ladies and gentlemen, for those who are joining us online, we do hope that you join us as well. Safe travels and have a wonderful evening. Thank you again.